Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be building this really cool news app, and it is going to have a lot of functionalities and you are going to learn so much. So without further delay, let's check what we are going to be building today. So we have our splash screen, which was the first screen that you saw before you enter this welcome screen. So this is the welcome screen, by the way, and it has all these little informations going on. If you click on get started, it is going to take us to the home screen, which we are going to pull different kinds of news from. And guys, we are pulling this news from a live API. And also, we have this first section here, which is breaking news. And the breaking news for today is what you're going to see on your screen right now. Also, we have this recommended news, which is basically the business news that we recommend to our users. And if you click on each of these news, it is going to pull the full information about this news as it is on the website. And you can scroll up to see the full information about the news. If you notice on your top right corner here, you have this green icon here, and that's because we already have this news bookmarked. And if you go back, you can as well see other bookmarked change from green or gray, and that's because this article right here is not bookmarked. And if you select this icon right here, you can bookmark this article and you can check it inside the saved section. And also we have a cool feature here, which is basically the dark and light theme mode. So if you select this, it is going to change our entire app to dark theme mode, and this is really cool. And you can see everything works perfectly. The text are changed to white whenever we're in dark mode. And also, if you click on the discover section, this is where we can select a specific category of news that we want, and you can even search for specific news that you want. So in my own case, if I select entertainment, it is going to pull news related to entertainment. And also if I click on health right here, it is going to pull the news related to health, and you're going to see all the news related to health right here. And you can even bookmark this, and it's going to have it saved for you. So the next screen we're going to check is the saved components of the screen, and you can see all the news that we have bookmarked already. And if you just head back to discover and you just bookmark this news right here, let's see, AI can detect diabetes. Let's just bookmark that. You can see it turns to green. And if you check back into our saved components, when you scroll up, you can see the same news that you already bookmarked, and that is pretty cool. This button right here is if you want to clear all the articles in your section, and if you click it in 3, 2, 1, it is going to remove all the news that you already have bookmarked, and that is a cool functionality. And if you head back to your home, all those articles that have green before, they are going to be changed back to green because they are no more bookmarked or they are no more in the saved articles. And if you check back to the last screen we have here, which is the search screen, here you can just type in any keyword that you want. In my own case, I'm just going to search for Tesla. And if I search for Tesla, you're going to see the exact word that I searched for, and you're going to see 100 news related to Tesla. And if I select all these news right here, I'm going to have it bookmarked, and you're going to see their color change any moment from now. As you can see, this has been changed. And also, this is going to change as well. Just give it a moment. And if you just select each of these news, you're going to see the full information about the news. But before the news load, you might see a loading icon which shows it is already coming. As you can see right here, the news is loading. So if you click on back, and if you check our saved section right here, you're going to see that the same news that we have right here has been bookmarked. And that is the cool functionalities we will be creating today. And you're also going to learn how to use different frameworks and packages to make this app really cool. And without further delay, let's jump into creating today's build. And before we get started, please remember to like this video, subscribe, and also check my other playlist regarding mobile app build, and you're going to learn so much. So without further delay, let's jump into creating today's news app. So to begin with, we're going to create a folder in our desktop directory, and we're going to call this news app, and we're going to drag this into our IDE, which is Visual Studio Code. And we're just going to expand this, and we're going to make sure that our virtual device is open and ready to go. So we're going to click on these 3 dots, go to terminal, and also click on new terminal. Then right here is where we're going to install all the packages that we want. So we head back to our browser, and the first on the list is React Native itself, and we're going to head to reactnative.dev. We're going to scroll up, and we're going to be using Expo Go Quick Starts to install our app. So we'll just copy this, and we head back to our terminal. We're going to paste this code right here, and we're going to rename this to, let's say, news. And we're going to click on enter. This will install React Native for us, and this is going to take a couple of minutes, so you're going to have to be patient with it. And once it has finished installing, I'm going to come back. So while that is installing, let's check back on our browser. And the next thing we're going to install is React Navigation. And we're just going to scroll up. Basically, what React Navigation does is basically let us handle all the different screens in our app. So imagine you have home screen, you have a welcome screen. Any screen that you have in your app, React Navigation is going to handle the navigation and make it smooth. So let's just head back to our terminal. This is still installing, and let's just give it a couple of seconds, and this should be done in any minute from now. So after this is ready, we're just going to head into the folder that it's installed by say cd news, and inside of here, right here is where we're going to install all the packages. If you check the package.json and just bring your terminal down a little bit, you're going to see it is only Expo and React Native that we have set up for now. So we're just going to paste the command that we copied here. We're going to install that as well. So click on enter, and this one should be very quick and all. So next thing we're going to install is the safe area context, and this is going to make sure that our app, in this case, doesn't mess with the status bar that we have right here whenever we have any content. We don't want it to go under this. As you can see this as well, you don't want all your contents to go under this status bar. This package is just what is going to make it into a safe area view. So let's just head back to our terminal. Let's just paste this as well. And let's check what we just installed right now, which is React Native Navigation. So paste this as well, click on enter, and that is also going to install. So let's just head back to our code. And on your left panel right here, you're going to scroll up and you're going to see navigators. And you're going to click on native stack. And native stack, we're also going to install it. So just copy it, go back to your code, install this. Naturally, once we're done installing React Native using Expo, I'm supposed to power up my app. But hey, whenever you power up your app and you install all these packages like I'm doing right now, you're going to need to restart your server every now and then, and that is what I don't want. So I want to install all my packages at once, then I can jump into coding and also working without any issues. So let's just head back to our browser, and this is the documentation on how to use native stack, which is basically screens stacking on top of each other. So over here as well, I'm going to install the bottom tabs. As you can see in my design, I have this cool bottom tab. So I'm just going to scroll up, copy this, and I'm going to paste this as well. And this is going to also install React Navigation bottom tabs. So let's head back to our browser, and I believe this is all we need regarding React Navigation. So let's just install styling for our app as well. We want to be able to style our app and give it all these nice UI and all. So I'm just going to head to nativewin.dev, and when you click on Expo, you're going to see all this documentation. We are done with this. We are done with this as well. All we have to do is just copy this native wind. We're just going to paste this, and at the front, we're going to see npm I, and we're going to install native wind. Click on enter, and this is going to undo using Tailwind CSS in our mobile apps. So you head back to your browser, and you copy this as well. Once you copy this, head back to your browser. This is still installing, so give it a second or two. Yes. So this one as well, we're going to say npm I. We're going to paste this. Now we don't want to install the latest Tailwind CSS because it is not quite stable with the latest Expo. So we're just going to install a specific version, which is 3.3.2. Click on enter, and this is going to install the stable version of Tailwind CSS for now. And also we're just going to copy this, head back to our code, and paste this. This is going to create a config file right here so that we can allow Tailwind CSS in our app and make it work. So it says created this file here. So right here, we're going to replace this content with every part that we want to use Tailwind CSS. So you head back to your code, and you're going to copy everything here. Go back to your code and just replace that with this. And that is all you need to do. Also, you should change this custom directory to the folders that we're going to be using Tailwind CSS. So here we're going to say we want this replaced with src, which is the source folder, which we're going to create any moment from now. So let's just head back to our browser, and it says the next step is putting this code or command inside of your babel.config.js, and we're just going to place this right here, and we are good to go to use Tailwind CSS. Now moving on, I also want to install another package called React Native Web View. Now this React Native Web View package is basically going to let you use the URL that is in our news data and view the website on our mobile app. That is basically what it does. It takes the URL, which is an actual news website, and it lets us view it on our mobile app. That is what that does. So let's just copy this, head back to our code, and just paste this right here. So click on enter and install that as well. So go back to your code. And the next one we're going to install is React Native Snap Carousel. And what this package does is basically just make sure our breaking news comes in a carousel way. So let's just copy this, go back to our code, paste this. But I don't want to install the latest version as well. I want to install a specific version because the same issues we deal with CSS. So I'm just going to say at, then I'll paste this version. And this is basically version 4.0.0 and the beta version. I'm just going to click on that. That is stable to work with our React Native app. So I'm just going to head back to my browser. Right here as well, it says React Native responsive screen. I'm going to copy that as well. This is going to give our mobile app responsiveness on all devices. As you can see, documentation here. It is going to be stable. So this is also installing. This is done. Let's just paste this as well. Install this and also go back to our browser. Right here, the next one we're going to use is React Native hero icons, which is basically using icons in our app. As you can see here, we have all these cool bookmark icon. This is what we undo all that. So copy this, head back to your code, paste this as well, click on enter. The next thing we are going to install is Lodash, which is basically a package that is used to handle your search inputs, and it is not limited to that. So what this package does is, in our news app, we are searching for specific news, and there's a function in this Lodash package that helps us wait for a couple of seconds before we search for the news, and that is going to help us improve our news app. So we're just going to install this as well. So we're just going to paste this as well, install this, and you can see the progress of all the packages that we're installing right here. So let's just head back to our code. And next one we're going to install is Expo splash screen, which is basically used with Expo fonts. So in case you're using a custom font, like in our app right here, this is not normal font you get when you're building a React Native app. If you want a custom font, this is going to help you show a splash screen until the font is loaded onto your app. So let's just copy this, head back to our code, and just paste this as well. Install this, head back to your code, and right here it says Expo linear gradient. This is basically going to give our component some kind of gradient. Imagine we have a text on top of an image. We want to have a cool gradient under the text so that it doesn't mix with each other. So let's just copy this and let's just paste this as well. Click on enter. The next one we're going to install is Expo font, which is basically using custom fonts in your app. So let's just copy this, head back to your code. This is installing. Let's just paste that as well. Let's install that quick. So the next one is Axios, which is basically used for fetching data from a live API source. So imagine you have a base URL and an endpoint for a specific API. In our case, the news app. This is what we want to use to fetch that data. So let's just copy this and let's just paste this as well. Let's head back to our browser. And also we want to be able to cache the data we're getting. That is, whenever we're getting the data, we want to be able to store it and not fetch it every time. So what this package does is basically cache or store our data when the data doesn't change. Imagine you're getting 500 news from the API source. If the news is not updated within 24 hours, you don't want to keep fetching the data every time and disturbing your app. You want to be able to cache the data and store it so that it is until the data change that you want to fetch. So this package is what is going to help us and do that. Let's just copy this. And let's just paste this right here. Install this as well. Go back to your browser. And next one I want to install is React Native async storage. So what this package does is, in some cases in our mobile app, we want to be able to store the state of all these bookmarks. That is, if we click on this bookmark, we're going to bookmark this specific news, and this is where we want to store it. That is just a simple explanation for it. And also there are more usage of async storage, but this is just what we're going to use it for. So let's just copy this. Go back to our code, paste this, install it, head back to our browser. So finally, this is the API we'll be using, which is the News API, and you can get that from newsapi.org. This API is going to give you the latest news as at today. So if you have a news regarding Israel-Palestine war, every update that you're seeing on CNN, BBC, you're going to get it in this News API as well. So all you have to do is just get API key, and it is as simple as that. But make sure that you register first so that you can have that. So you can see my API key right here, and my plan is a developer plan. So that is all you need for now. Now let's check our package.json and see all the packages we'll be using today. So these are all the packages I will be using. And if we just minimize this, and let me just bring back my terminal. And yeah, we also want to check if all the packages that we're using in our app is compatible with each other. So you have to do is just paste this command, which is basically npx expo install fix. So if we click on that, it is going to make sure that it checks all this library, and it is going to make sure that the version works together with each other. So that is what this package does basically. And as you can see right here, it listed some packages that are not compatible with each other, and it is trying to install them. So give this a moment or two, and it's going to install the version that will work with our app. As you can see, it is installing. So give it a second or two, and this is going to install the necessary versions for us. As you can see, it has been installed. Now we can power up our app. So we're just going to power up our app by saying npx expo start. Click on enter, and this is going to start our React Native app on our virtual device right here. You're going to see this QR code pop up when you input that command. If you have an iPhone, you can easily just scan this QR code using your camera, and make sure that you have the Expo Go app installed on your iPhone device, so you can be able to view your app development on your phone. If you don't, you can easily just start a virtual device right here, or just connect your Android device to your laptop or your system, and you're good to go. So in my own case, I'm just going to click on A to open this app on the virtual device right there. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit and close this. And our app should open any moment from now on our virtual device. Just give it a second or two. And right now it is getting our app ready. As you can see, it is bundling the app. So once the bundling is complete, you can see your app on your screen any moment from now, as you can see. So let's just close this entirely. And let's head back to our app.js, and let's just change everything here to hello world. Let's save that, and you should see the changes right away. And let's now also test our Tailwind CSS and see if that works. Let's just see BG orange or 400. And as you can see, that works. Also, while I'm coding, you're going to see some suggestion on the screen, and that is coming from your extension right here, and you're going to be seeing GitHub Copilot. So this is the package or extension. This is the extension that will handle the auto suggest and all. Also, to work with Tailwind CSS, you can also install Tailwind IntelliSense. You can also use this package as well, because it is going to make our styling way easier. And if you hover over this style, you're going to see what it contains basically. So let's just minimize this. Let's remove everything here, and also remove everything here as well. So we have a bare project like this. Now I want to set up our folder structure and how that will look like. So inside of our app, we're just going to create a folder called SRC. And inside of this SRC, we're also going to have several folders as well. The first and most important one is the component. Also, another folder inside of the source is going to be constant, which is going to hold all our dummy data. And also we want to have a folder called fonts. And we're doing that because we want to use a custom font in our mobile app. After that, we want navigation. And after that, we also want the final one for now, which is screens. And yes, so in our navigation right here, we're going to create a file, and the file is going to be called index.js. And here we're going to have a basic boiler code, which is basically a function. And also we're going to change this to app navigation. Save that. And you can also change this to just be navigation. And inside of our app.js, we're going to remove everything that is here, and we're going to bring in the app navigation that we just created right now. We're going to save that and also remove any code we are not using. So inside of here is where we're going to bring in all the screens and set up our navigation. So inside of the screens, I'm going to create about 7 or 8 folders, which is basically our entire screen in our app. As you can see right here, you have the home screen, you have the discover screen, save screen, search screen, and also you have the news details screen, and so on and so forth. Here is where I want to set up everything properly. So first on the list is going to be a splash screen. Splash screens.js. I'm just going to say React Native functional components like this. Also, I want to create another file called the welcome screen.js. I'm going to create a boiler code for that as well. Also, I want to have the home screen.js. I can as well create a boiler code for that as well. The next thing I'm going to create is a discover screen.js. And here I'm going to say React Native functional component. Also, I want to have a search screen.js. And I don't think we have the right word there. So that works. And also, let's just say React Native functional component. And the next one I want to have is a saved screen, which is where we're going to store all our news, React Native functional components. And I believe that is all for now. Also, let's create another folder. We're going to call this news details screen.js. I'm going to say React Native functional components. So all these screens that we created, I want to bring all these screens inside our app navigation right here. So first things first, here I'm going to import our navigation container from React Navigation Native, which has an @ at the end. Also, I want to import create native stack navigator from React Navigation Native /stack. Also, I want to import, I want to import create bottom tab navigator from React Navigation bottom tabs. And while that is ready, I'm just going to say create a variable here and call it tab and assign it to the create bottom tab navigator function that we are importing from this right here. Also, I want to also create another variable and I'm going to call this stack. And this stack is going to be assigned to this as well. Let me just make this capital letter. And once that is ready, I also want to bring in the package that we handle all our dark and light mode, and that is called use color scheme, and it is coming from Native Wind. It is not coming from React Native, but Native Wind. Select that, and let's just continue working on our code right here. So first things first here, I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call this tab navigator, and I'm going to be assigning that to an arrow function. I'm going to return it because in every function you have to return something. And here is where I'm going to use the tab.navigator that I have created here. And this is throwing an error, and that's because I don't want this at all. Now, the first screen I want to have here is the home. This is correct. But this, I want this to be discover, because if you check our design right here, our second bottom tab is discover. And this, I want to call discover screen. And let's just import that right away. So it is not seeing it. Let's just do this. Import home screen from this. Let me just check the path again if that is correct. Okay, the path is correct. Excellent. So the same with the discover screen. GitHub Copilot is going to suggest that I auto import these screens because they have a similar pattern. And let me just minimize this. So next on the screen is I want to also have, let me just do this. But this is not going to be settings at all. This is going to be saved. And as you guess, this is also going to be saved screen. And the next thing I want to do is also create the final one, which is the bottom tab. I'm going to call this search. This is the last screen that we're going to have on our bottom tab. And we're going to call this search screen as well. A little typo here. And GitHub is going to suggest that I import it like that, which is correct by the way. So next I'm going to do, inside of this return statement, I'm going to say I want to use the navigation container. And inside of this, I'm going to use the stack.navigator. And this is going to look like this. And inside of the stack navigator, I'm going to have several screens. And the first one is going to be tab navigator. and this is going to be called home tabs. As you can see, all our bottom tabs right here, and you can see it also. So next thing I'm going to import is, say I want to also have a stack dot screen, but this is going to be called splash screen with an S, and this is also going to be using splash screens like this, but with a small letter. And let's just see if this will let us import it this way. Nope. Let me just go up here and import splash screens from splash screens. As you can see it right here. Next on the list is going to be a welcome screen. Stack dot screen, and this is going to be called welcome, and this is also going to be called welcome with a small letter as well. And also here I'm going to also bring something else, and this is going to be called search. This is going to be called search screen. And after this, I'm going to create the final one, which is the news details screen. So I'm going to say this one is called stack screen. And also, I'm going to say this is called news details. And this is going to be coming from news details screen. And let me just import everything right away. So welcome screen, news details screen, as you can see right here. Do we have any imports to make? No, we don't. Now I'm going to give this some properties, and inside of these news details, I want, whenever I click on each news like you have here, whenever I click on each of these news, I want the news detail screen to come from the bottom and not just come from the left. To achieve that, I'm going to say options, and these options is going to be looking like this. I'll say animation is going to be not slide from right, but slide from bottom. You can customize it based on what you want. Now, once this is ready, let me just minimize this. As you can see, our screen is almost ready. In the stack.navigator as well, I want to have an initial route name, and I want that to be splash screen. So this screen will be the first screen that we see when we enter our app. Also, I want to have a screen options, and this screen options is going to say header shown for everything is going to be false. So you're not going to see the header that we used to see before. Save that, and we're almost ready. Finally, I just want to bring in something else. Right here, I want to use the color scheme. As you can see, it is already suggesting what I need. Let me just say toggle color scheme as well. This will make me switch between light and dark theme mode. Also, the next thing I want to do is my tab navigation. I want it to have all these icons and style it properly. So right here, I'm just going to say screen options. I'm just going to have an arrow function inside of this, and this is going to look like this basically, and this is also going to have a curly braces inside. Now, first things first, I want to destructure something inside of this parameter right here, and what I want to destructure is the route. Inside of this as well, I want to say the header shown is going to be of false. I don't want to see any header right here. Currently, this is a stack, and I've already switched off the header for that. In our tab, we still have our header shown, and I want to turn that off first. So I want to say here also tab bar icon right here. I want to say this is going to look like this, which is basically an arrow function. And inside of this, I'm going to say I want to declare a variable first and call this let name just be like this. And inside of this, I also want to destructure something called focused. So whenever we are focused in our app like this, it is going to turn green. Moving on, I want to say if route dot name is equal to home, then I want to show a specific icon. I'm going to say let icon name be equal to home. Also right here, I want to say else if the route dot name is equal to discover, then I also want to have something else, and that is going to say icon name is going to be compass outline. The next thing I'm going to do is say else if the route name is saved, I want the icon name to be bookmark dash outline. And finally, I want to also say else if the route name is search, I also want to have the icon name as search outline. Now, after this is ready, I want to also say create another variable called customize size, and this is going to be 25. And finally, I want to return something right here. I don't want this to look like this. I want this to look like this instead. And inside of this, I'm going to use ionic icons right here. I don't think we've installed that yet, but anyway, we're going to install it. Let's just set this up. I'm going to say name is going to be icon name, which we already set up right here. After this, I'm going to say size is going to be customized size that we have set up here. Also, I'm going to say the color, if it is focused, I want that to be green. Else, I just want to use a gray color, and that is all I want. Now, this right here, I can just minimize this like this. And next thing I want to do here is say tab bar active tint color. I want that to be green. That is all this text. I want this to be green. Also, I want to have the tab bar inactive color to be gray as well. And also, I want to say tab bar label style. I want to also style this like this by saying the font size is going to be 12. The font family as well is going to be not this specific font, but I want to use a font called Space Grotesque Medium. I'm going to set up the font any minute from now. And finally here, I want to have tab bar style. And this tab bar style is going to look like this, just basically background color. And I'm going to say, if color scheme is dark, which we already set up here, as you can see, if our app is having the dark theme, use this specific color. I don't want this to be like this. I want this to have the color of black. Else, just use white. And yes, we are good to go with our app navigation. So before we leave this place, I want us to install the icon that we're using right here. As you can see, where's the icon? Let me just bring this up. So this icon right here is coming from Expo Vector Icons, which I'm here to install. So let's just head back to our browser. And inside of this, let's just search for Expo Vector Icons. And let's just copy this. Go back to our terminal, bring up our terminal, open another terminal, and let's just cd into the news folder, and let's paste this, and this will let us use the icon that we have right here. And right here we can now see import, we can now see ionic icons from Expo Vector Icons straight away, and this shouldn't have any issues. Let's just remove this because we are not using this at all. So let's just minimize this and head back to our, let's close this as well. Let's go to our splash screen right here, and let's begin working on our splash screen. As you can see, this is the design for our splash screen right here. Simple as it can be. Let's just minimize this as well. So first things first, inside of our folder here, I want to bring in fonts that we'll be using inside of this. And you can find the fonts in the description box below, or you can check googlefonts.com, and you're going to find Space Grotesque, which is the font we're going to be using. So in my own case, I'm just going to bring in a font right now, and I'm just going to put that inside of here, as you can see. And also I want to bring in some images that we'll be using in our app. So inside of our art sets, I'm going to bring in an image folder. You can find them in the description box below. And I'm just going to put that inside of our assets right here. And you can see the image right here. It's just a reporter image. That's all. So let's just close it, minimize this. And we can as well close this as well. And inside of our splash screen, let's begin working on this. So inside of here, I'm just going to say const navigation is going to be coming from use navigation. Let's just import that right away. And after that, I'm going to create some set of, and inside of here, I'm going to say font loaded. We're going to be using the use font from Expo font. And let me just close this like this. Also font loaded, I also want to use font error as well. And inside of this is where I want to set up all my fonts. So I want to say space text medium is going to require it from this particular part, but this is not what the part look like. I just want to have this right here. Also, I don't want to have this. I want to have it like this. And next, I want to have the space text semi bold. And I don't want to have the regular actually. I just want to have this. And finally, I want to have the bold as well. So this is the three fonts that I need in my app. And I'm going to create a function right here called on layout view, on layout root view. You can find all this code in the documentation. And also, I'm going to be using the use callback hook from React to remember or memorize the function. And I'm just going to import this right away. So when this is ready, I also want to have this right here so we don't get any funny error. And at the front of this, I'm going to say async right here. And inside of this, I'm going to say use an if else statement by saying if font loaded is true or if font error is true, then I'm going to say await splash screen dot hide async, and I'm just going to bring, no, this is not what I want. I actually want something else. I'm going to say import star as splash screen from Expo splash screen. This is what I definitely want. Also, I want to import these use fonts from Expo fonts, and that throws no error at all. And inside of this, I'm also going to set a timeout. I'm going to say set time out, and this is going to be looking like this. This is going to have an arrow function inside of this, and I'm going to say navigation.navigate to the welcome screen. And also finally, I'm going to set a time for it. So whenever you hit 3 seconds, this splash screen will automatically go to the welcome screen. And finally, I'm going to be using a use effects hook from React to set that up as well. And after this, I'm going to say I want to have a dependency as well. So inside of this is where I'm going to call the function that I created right here. I'm going to call it that way. And also, I'm also going to say in font loaded and also font error. And finally, I'm going to say if font loaded is not true, then just return no. And that is basically what you need to set up to use all these fonts in your app. And moving on, let me just minimize this. Inside of this, I'm going to use an image background. And this is going to look like this. I want to have this nice image under that. And I'm just going to say the source of my image is going to be coming from require, but this part is not the part I want. Then after the images, I want to have a welcome folder as well. Also, I want to have reporter.jpg right here. Save that. And you should see our image show up any minute from now, but we're going to give it width and height so that it shows up. Moving on, I'm going to say after this, I'm going to have a class name. And the class name is going to be flex of 1, justify center and item of center. And inside of this as well, I'm going to be using a linear gradient from Expo linear gradient. And on top of this, I'm going to say the colors for this is going to be an array. And this array is going to have this specific color right here. But this is not exactly what I want. I want this to be 85 and this to be 0.95. Also, I want this to be 85. Also, I want this to be 95, 0.95. Save that. After this, I also want to have the style for this linear gradient. I want the position to be absolute. Let me just remove this. The bottom, I want this to be 0 as well. I don't need this. Let me just save that. Now the height is 100%. I also want to set the weight to be 100%. And finally, under this, I want to have a start and end. And this is what that will look like. But this is going to be 0.5. And this is going to be 0. This is going to be 0.5 as well. And this is going to be 1. Save that. And inside of this, we're going to have a view. And inside of this view is where I'm going to say on layout. And this is going to use on layout root view. And inside of this as well, as you can see, our background is shaping up already. We're going to say, I want to use a class name. And inside of here, I'm going to say class name. And also inside of this view is where I'm going to have a nice text. And the text is going to say Stack News. Save that. I'm going to have the following properties, which is going to be class name. And the class name is going to be text of white, text of 3XL. Just make sure that is correct. Font is going to be extra bold, and everything here is going to be uppercase. Save that. And this has already arrived at the welcome screen. Let's just go back, and you can see this is what our text look like. So finally, I'm going to have an animation here. So whenever we are inside of this text will fade in up, and that is what I want. So this is ready, and we can as well continue with our next screen, which is basically the welcome screen. And yes, let's just head back to our sidebar here and check the welcome screen. And yes, this welcome screen, this is what it will look like, as you can see right here. So let's just continue working on our app by saying this is going to be image background. And this image background is going to have a source. And the source is going to be require, but this is going to be also this exact part right here. Let's just minimize this. And let's give this a nice height and all. So we're going to say class name is going to be flex of 1, justifier of center, item of center, and also padding bottom of 6, in case we have other buttons as well inside of this. After that, we're just going to use the same linear gradients that we have here. And we're just going to tweak it a little bit. Let's just copy everything here and paste this right here. And let's just import that right away. So in our app navigation right here, I just want to set something up first. I don't want to keep going back to our splash screen. So yeah, I'm just going to say the initial route name is going to be welcome. When we're done with the entirety of our app, we can set this back to splash screen. So let me just close this. And inside of the welcome screen here, let me close the splash screen as well. I want to have a specific color theme, and this right here is going to be transparent. This is what I want. And also I want to change this to be of 1, and also this to be of 1. And I think that is all I want regarding that. So next thing I'm going to do is say, and also I don't want this to be 85 but 0, and this to be 9. I just want to have a dark kind of gradient right there. And after this, I want to have a view. And inside of this view, I'm going to have a class name. And this class name is going to say flex of 1, items of center, justify of end. The max width, I want it to be custom and say this is going to be 85%. Also, I want to have a space y of 4. And inside of this, I want to have a text. And this text is basically going to say stay informed from day one. And I'm going to say this is going to have a nice class name as well. This is going to be font of bold, text of 4XL, shadow of 2XL, text of white, text of center, tracking of wider. As you can see, our text is coming along. And inside of here, I'm going to also have a style property here. I'm going to say the font size is going to be using WP, which is our responsive screen package. And this is going to be 10. I don't want this to be WP. We're going to import that right away. And also the font family is going to be space text bold. And this right here, I'm just going to add to the top of my code and say import width as this, which is basically saying width percentage to DP as well. And I can as well just remove the font bold and save this so that we can see our unique font right here. Let's just scroll up. So after this, I also want to have a text, and this text is going to say discover the latest news with our seamless onboarding experience, just like that. And I'm going to have some nice styling here. I'm going to say the class name here. Text is white, text is center. The max weight is going to be also 85%. Leading is going to be 12. Tracking is going to be wider. And the style here is going to be font size of WP of not 5 but 4. Also, I want to have a font family of space text medium. After that is ready, I want to have a button, as you can see it right here. So under this view, I'm going to say use a touchable opacity, and this is going to have a text inside. And this text is going to say getting started, like this. Let me just minimize this. And this text is going to have the following class name. It's going to say text of base, text of white. We're going to see the button right away. But the touchable opacity, I want to also have the following class names. I want to have a BG of screen, BG of green, 900, rounded or full, P of 4, which is padding of 4. Justify is going to be of center. Items is going to be of center. Width is going to be 90%. And the margin top is going to be 8. And our button is ready. Also, I want to make sure that I use a specific font for this. Let me just copy this and put this right here. And you can see our button is shaping up. And finally, I want to have an event listener on the touchable opacity. So whenever I click on this button, I'm going to be taken to the home screen. And to do that, I'm just going to come back here and say on press. This on press is going to look like this. It's going to have an arrow function. And there's an issue somewhere here. Okay. Now, I don't want this to be called onboarding. I'm going to say this is going to be called home tabs. So once that is ready, let me just make sure that I have that set up. I'm just going to say const navigation is going to be coming from use navigation and import that right away. Let me just remove this. I don't want this. So our welcome screen is ready, and once we select this, it will take us to the home screen. Let's just do that in 3, 2, 1. As you can see our home screen, and you can see all our icons right here. If you click on discover, you click on saved, you click on search, and everything is set up properly. So let's go to our home and let's start our home screen straight away. So right here on our home screen, this is the design we'll be creating for our home screen. It has this nice header and this switch which will change our app from light to dark mode. And also this search icon here which will take us to the search page to search for a specific kind of news that we want. And this section is basically the breaking news section, which is basically the current news right now on BBC, CNN, and all other news stations. And also the recommended news, which is basically a specific category of news that we are recommending to every user. And also we have this icon here, which we can use to bookmark this specific news. And we have the dates, we have the authors and stuff. So to get ready with this, I don't just want to use a fixed data. I want to use the live data coming from the API directly. And to get started with that, so I'm just going to head back to my browser and I'm going to check newsapi.org, which is basically where you can get your API key to pull all the latest news for today. So I'm just going to click on get API key and you're going to sign up obviously. And you're going to be given this API key. All you have to do is just copy this API key, go back to your code, go to your sidebar right here. And inside of the news folder, you're going to create another folder called utils. And this utils is going to have two files in it. And the first one being API key.js. And here I'm just going to declare a variable. I'm going to say export const news API key. And I'm going to assign it to a string and paste the API key that we copied right here. Now, the next one is to create another folder called news API.js. This is where we're going to fetch all our news data based on if it is a breaking news, if it's a category. Also, in the discover screen right here, we're going to be able to select all these categories and it's going to fetch specific category based on what we selected right here. And also, we're able to search. So this right here is going to handle all that right here. So right here, I'm just going to say import and I'm going to say news API key. I'm going to bring it from this part /API key. Also, I'm going to import Axios. I'm going to be bringing that in from Axios as well. Now, under this is where I'm going to have all my endpoints created. And the first variable I'm going to create is going to be API base URL. And I'm going to assign it to this base URL. If we check the website again, let's just go back to home, documentation. This is where you're going to find all the documentation regarding how to use their endpoints and all. And if you look at endpoints right here, click on it. You're going to see what the endpoints look like. And if you click on everything, you're going to see how to pull their news and all. You can see this is the base URL and this is the query. This is the API key. If you click on top headlines, you're going to see how to pull top headlines, basically the trending news or the breaking news. Also, if you click on sources, you're going to see just the basic API in its raw state, which is basically this is the base API, this is the API key, and this is the top headlines, and this is how to use the API. We know that already. Let's head back to our code. And right here is where I'm going to say const breaking news URL. I'm going to be assigning it to this right here, which is basically a backticks. And you can find these backticks beside your number one on your keyboard. So that's the backticks. And I'm going to use a $sign, put this into curly braces, and say this part is going to be top headlines. And after this, I'm going to put a question mark right here. And I'm going to say country is going to be US. So I want to be pulling the breaking news from US. And also the API key, I want to assign it to the API key that we are pulling from here. That is all we need regarding breaking news. Also, I want to create another one called recommended news. Let me just close this or minimize this. Recommended news is going to be coming from not this URL. Let me just remove everything here. In fact, let me remove everything right here. And here I'm going to say after the API based URL, I want to have the top headlines. And after that, I'm going to say country is going to be US. And also category is going to be not technology, but let's say business. You can also choose technology. You can also choose any categories that you want. Just make sure that the category exists on their documentation. If you check their top headlines right here, you're going to see the category that you can specify: business, technology, health, and all. So let's just head back to our code right here, and this is ready. The next one I'm going to say is I want to also create a discover news URL, and this is going to look like this. It's going to be an arrow function with a backticks just like this in its raw state. And I'm going to say, yeah, I want to have a parameter which is called discover. And instead of this backticks, I want to have something as well. I'm going to say, I want to have the API based URL, which is the most important thing. And also, I want to have the top headlines and also the country being USA. And also, the category is going to be based on the category that the user selects right here. And also the API key is the API key we are assigning right here. This is how to fetch the discover news right here. So whenever you select each of these categories, the title is going to be assigned to this category right here, and it will fetch based on the category. After this, I want to also make sure to set the search news URL. And this is what the endpoint for the search URL looks like. This is going to be not search, but query. And right here also, I'm going to say this is going to be query. So basically, the API based URL, just like we have right here, and also slash everything, then we're going to query based on the specific query that the user passed right here, and also the API key we're assigning into it, and that is how to use or set up the search endpoint. Next, we are going to be creating is the news API call function, which is going to be using Xuse to fetch the data based on this endpoint, and we're going to make it custom. So we're going to say const news API call is going to be an async, and this is going to take into parameters. The first one being endpoint, the second one being params, and this is going to be looking like this. And inside of here, I'm going to say const options is going to be the method here is going to be get. The URL is going to be coming from the endpoint. Also, the params is going to be params. And we want to use a ternary operator here to just check if param is true. If param is true, then use params, else just use an empty object right there. Now, I'm going to try something and also catch whatever errors that we might get. So catch this as well. And for the errors, I'm just basically going to say console.log the errors and return an empty object. And here I'm going to say error. Now inside of the try, I'm going to say create a variable called response. And this response is going to use an await, and Xuse is going to be the manager we'll be using. And I'm going to be requesting based on the options that I set here. And you have Xuse imported already. After this, I'm going to return the data that I'm getting, which is respond.data. And that is all I need to do in this section. Then finally, our news API call is ready. And the next thing I want to do is also make sure that this function right here works with the endpoint. So I'm just going to say export const fetch. This is going to be fetch breaking news. And inside of here, I'm going to say return await news API call, and I'm going to assign this breaking news endpoint as its argument. So moving on, I'm also going to say export fetch recommended news, and this is going to be an async as well. And the same thing I'm doing here, I'm doing it as well. But in this case, I'm using the recommended news as the argument. Also, I'm going to say export const fetch discover news, and this is going to have a parameter as discover. And we're going to use the news API function and also the discover news URL, which we have right here, which takes in a parameter also. So I'm just going to assign this to it. And finally is the export fetch search news. And this is going to use an async right here. But first, I want to have this looking like this. Endpoint is going to be assigned to search news URL query. And I'm going to return await news API call, but I'm going to assign the endpoint to it just like this. This is how to fetch news based on a search query. So if you search for Tesla, this is what we give you results for Teslas and co. So our API is ready and we're ready to use this in our code. So let's just head back to our home screen. Let's close our API key for now. So first things first, I'm going to create some state first, and I'm going to call this breaking news. This is going to be a comma, and I'm going to set breaking news to an empty array. Also, let me just minimize this. So let's just click this. It says use state doesn't exist. Let's just do this like this. Also, I want to head back to my navigation right here, and I want to say I don't want to keep going back to this screen when I am working on the screen that is different from it. So if I just click this, even when the app reload, I'm still going to be on this specific screen. So instead of my home screen, I also want to create another state, and this is going to be called recommended news. And I'm going to be setting recommended news to an empty array as well. Up here also, I want to create a const called color scheme. And this is going to be assigned to this. Let me just import this like this. And we're going to be using this to switch between dark and light mode in our app. Moving on, I'm going to say this is where I want to fetch my data in real time. So I want to say breaking news. And I'm going to say const. We're going to be using tank stack or React query to cache our data. So this is where we set that up. We're going to say is going to be equal to use query. And this use query is going to look like something like this. To be able to use this in our app, we need to have a global state or global store. And we're going to head back to our app, and this is where we're going to wrap our app around that global store. So here, I'm just going to say import. I'm going to say query client, and also query client provider from not this, because we didn't install this, we install at time stack React query. And also I want to create a variable called const query client, and I'm going to assign it to this query client that I have right here. And also finally, I want to wrap everything here inside of a bracket. And up here is where I want to wrap my query client provider that I have right here. So I'm just going to say query client provider. And I want to move this code right here to here. Excellent. After that, I want to create a parameter here, and I'm going to call this the query client that I have right here. And this is going to be a global store. So back in my home screen, I'm going to import use queries right away. And this error should disappear any moment from now. Let me just save that. So inside of here, I'm just going to say is loading is going to be assigned to is breaking news loading. That is, if the data is loading, I want to be able to set some things first, maybe show a loading icon or something else, maybe a spinner. Also, here is where I'm going to say use query key and use this data like this. Let me just remove this. And the query key, which is a unique key for this particular fetch, is going to be breaking news. The query function is going to be fetch breaking news, which I'm going to just import from utils right here, as you can see the path. So on sources, I want to use the data and set the data to this state that we create right here, which is basically pulling the data.articles, because the data you are getting has several objects, and it is inside of these articles that you have all those news. Excellent. Moving on, I'm going to say on error, I want to just console.log the error and say this is going to be looking like this. I'm going to say error fetching breaking news, and this is what that will look like. So in case you have any error, you can basically just see the errors in the terminal. The same thing that we did here, we're going to be doing it for recommended news as well, because as you can see in our design right here, this breaking news, this is what we just set up, and this recommended news is what we're doing right now. Here I'm going to say this one is going to be called recommended news loading. And this one I'm going to be calling it recommended news because it has to be unique. Recommended news. And this is going to be recommended news. And this is going to be fetch recommended news as we have it right here. Also, I'm going to be setting the data to the array that we have right here. Where is it? I'm also going to be setting the data.articles, and here is going to say error fetching recommended news to the error that we have right here. And yeah, that is all we need to do regarding fetching data. And we can just continue assigning all our data to all our components right here. Immediately we are started, we're going to see the changes live. So it seems our app is not fetching the data correctly. Let's just reload because we did one or two things. Let's just reload and let that error be solved. So inside of here is where we're going to have all our several components. So yeah, it said based on the latest version and all, basically say with you, make sure I put this to be inside of an array, not an object, an array like this, which is basically brackets. Also put this inside brackets and that error disappears. And also, and yes, that should fix our error. Let's just close this and that error should be gone any moment. And yeah, let's start styling our app. So first things first, this view is going to be known as safe aerial view coming from React Native. As you can see right here, this is coming from React Native safe area context. This is going to make sure that all our information right here is not messing up with the status bar right here. Also, I want to have a nice status bar here and say status bar is coming from Expo status bar. And here is where I'm going to set some things. I'm going to say the style is going to be based on something. If the color scheme of our app is basically dark, if you're on dark theme, then I want to use the light theme for the status bar. Else I just want to use the dark theme right here. So next I want to do is create this nice header right here. So I'm going to head back into my components and I'm going to say create a new file called header.js. I'm just going to create a basic boiler code right here. And here in our home screen, under this, I'm going to say just bring in the header that we created right now. And you should see our header right away, as you can see. So let's remove this text. We don't need it any longer. Let's just minimize this. And inside of our header is where we're going to have this header right here. So first things first, let's just say const navigation is going to be coming from use navigation. Let's just import that right away. After this, I'm also going to say const color scheme is going to be assigned to the use color scheme coming from native wind. And inside of this view, I want to have a class name. And this class name is going to say flex of row, justify of between items of center, mx of 4, margin top of 4 as well. And also, I want to have a view. Inside of this view, I want to have a text. And this text is going to say stack news. And this text is going to have the following class name. This is going to say font of space grotesque bold, which is the font we set earlier. And the text is going to be 2XL. Text is going to be of green 800. When we are in the dark mode, I want the text to be white. The font, I want it to be extra bold and also uppercase. I will actually remove this font extra bold because this is not going to make our font space grotesque bold work properly. And as you can see, the stack news right there. And also, we don't need this here. My bad. Next thing we're going to do is have a style here. And the style is going to be a font family of space grotesque bold. And you can see this change right away. Next on the list is going to be this switch icon and the search icon right here. So after this view, I'm just going to say I want to have a view here as well. And in this view, I want to bring in a switch. Let me just import that from React Native right here. Let me just close this, and you can see the switch right here. Let me remove this header text. So if you click it now, nothing happens because we are here to set things properly. And first things first, I'm going to say the value for this is going to be based on the color scheme, which is going to be dark. And also on change event handler, which is going to change the entire color scheme of our app. And I'm going to assign a toggle color scheme to it. And if you just switch this, it's going to change our app to a specific color. And as you can see, the bottom navigation has already changed. If I switch it back, it's going to change to white. So that is what we want for our entire app. Once you set the background, it is going to change entirely. Moving on after this, I want to have a touchable opacity right here. And this touchable opacity is going to have the following properties. The class name is going to be BG Gray 200. The dark is going to be BG Grain 800. Rounded is going to be of full and padding of 2. And finally, I'm going to say on press. So whenever I press this, I want it to take me to a specific screen, which is the search screen, by the way. As you can see, the search screen. Also, I want to have a class name here. And this is going to say flex of row, space x of 4, rounded of full, justify of center, items of center. So this looks good. Let's just have some text here or icon. And we're just going to say magnifying glass icon. So it says this icon doesn't exist. We're going to fix that any moment from now. Let's just head back here and say import magnifying glass icon. It's not going to be coming from icons, but it's going to be coming from React Native hero icons / outline. And that error should disappear any moment from now. And right here, I'm going to say I want to have a size. The size is going to be 25. Also, I want to have a stroke width. And the stroke width is going to be 2. And also the color is going to be color scheme. Using the color scheme. And this is going to be dark. And if the color scheme is dark, I want to use a white. Else, I want to use a green. So this is what that looks like. As you can see, our icon right here. So that's ready. And if you just switch this, you're going to see that change right away. So let's just check our design and see if this looks like what we want. Yes, that is what we want exactly. So the next thing we're going to create is this breaking news section right here. So let's head back to our home screen. Let's just close the welcome screen. And under this, so inside of here, we're going to see if is breaking news loading is true, right? We want to show a component, which is basically a loading component to show users that the news is loading. Else, we want to show the main section of the news. So here, we're just going to create a loading component. And we're just going to head back to our components real quick. Inside of our components, we're going to create a loading.js component. And this is going to look like this. And inside of here, we're just going to say use activity indicator. And this is going to look like this. The size is going to be large. The color is going to be green. Also here, we're going to say the class name is going to be flex of 1. We have a typo here. Justify is going to be center. Items is going to be center as well. And that is all we need for our loading components. We're going to close it. And right here, we're just going to import that right away. So inside of here, we're just going to say we want a view to be here. And inside of this view, we're going to say we want to have a mini header first. And this mini header is going to have a label, and the label is going to be known as breaking news. And this is what that looks like, as you can see right here. Because this component right here, we're going to be using it in several places. We have to make it reusable and use props to set the title and all. So we're just going to head back to our component again. We're going to create a mini header.js component. We're going to say React Native functional component, and let's just minimize this. And right here, we're going to say we want to have a class name, and the class name is going to be px of 4, which is padding horizontal. Margin vertical is going to be 4 as well. Justify of between, flex of row, items of center. And inside of here is where we're going to say we want to have a props that's going to say label, but we still need to destructure the label right here. And it seems our app is going into a state we don't want. It says mini header doesn't exist. That's calm. Let's just head back to our home screen and bring this in right away. And inside of here, we're going to see, as you can see, our breaking news label right here. But we still need to style it properly. Our text, we're going to say it has a class name, and the class name is going to be text of 4XL, or XL rather. We don't want that to be too big. Text is going to be green of 800. When we're on dark theme, we want the text to be white. And also inside of this, we want to have the style. We want to have a font family of space gray text bold, as you can see. Also, we want to have another text after this. And this text is basically going to have view all as its content. And also, let me just minimize this. We want to have a class name, and the class name is going to be text of base, text of gray, 600. Dark is going to be text neutral 300. And the style is going to be the font family of space gray text medium. As you can see, that is shaping up already, just like what you have right here. So that is all we want for our header. Let's head back to our home screen and let's just close the mini header for now. The next component you want to have is the breaking news section. And under this, we're going to say breaking news. And this is going to be a self-closing component. And we're going to say label, which is a prop we're passing, is going to be breaking news. Also, the data is going to be breaking news, which is the state that we already created right here. You know, we're setting the data right here. So we're just going to create this component right away. And inside of our component, we're going to create another file called breaking news.js. We're just going to create a basic boiler code like this. And this is where we're going to have this nice component anchored using the snap carousel. So that when we scroll, it is going to grow big and grow small if it is not inactive. If it is not active. So inside of here, first things first, let's first destructure the props. We're going to call this data and label. Also, we're going to say const navigation is going to be coming from use navigation. Also, we want to set a function after this. We're going to say const undo click. Whenever we click on each of those cards, this is what we want to happen. We're just going to have an arrow function here. We're going to have a parameter here that says item. And inside of this, we're going to say navigation dot navigate to the news details screen. And also we're going to pass the item, but not as objects like this. Save that, and we should be good to go. So inside of this, we don't want to just have this text. We want to have a carousel which is coming from React Native Snap Carousel. And here is where we want to have a self-closing tag. We want to have some basic things here. We want to say the data is going to be coming from the data props. And also we want to have a render item prop here. This is going to also take an arrow function. And inside of this is where we're going to destructure something. Let me just check once again. Okay, inside of this, we're just going to destructure item. And the rendered item that we have is going to be coming from the breaking news card. And it's going to have the following data. The item is going to be these item parameters that we have right here. And also, we want to have an undo click here instead, but it's not going to be using an arrow function. We're going to be setting this like this. And we don't want to have anything like this. So this breaking news card, we want to have it created here as well. We're going to say breaking news card.js. We're going to create a basic boiler code for this. Or let's head back to our home screen. And this breaking news is like this. And we should see our component right now. And if we don't see that, that's basically because this needs to be a string. And it says breaking news doesn't exist. Let's just import that right away. And you should see our breaking news component any moment from now. So this is our breaking news card. We need to set some things as well. So let's just head back to breaking news and let's just import these right away. After this, I want to say the first item is going to be 1. Also, the inactive slide scale, I want this to be 0.86. Also, I want the slider width to be of width. Also, I want the item width to be of width, but this is not the value I want. I want width multiplied by 0.8. And also I want to have the slide style to be looking like this. Display is going to be of flex. Then align items as well is going to be centered. Let's just make sure that we have this width created. I'm just going to say const, which is going to be coming from the dimensions method. Let me just import that from React Native. And any moment from now, we should see our data once we have passed all the props inside our breaking news card. And inside of this, I'm just going to change this to be untouchable without feedback. And also, I'm going to say on press is going to be coming from undo click. And I'm going to pass in the item right there. But this is also going to be an arrow function. And here is where I'm going to destructure the data I'm getting. I'm going to be getting the item and also undo click. Inside of here, I'm going to have a view. And this view is going to have the following properties. The class name is going to be relative. Also inside of this view, I want to have an image. Let me just import the image real quick. I'm going to say the source is going to be coming from URI, and it's going to be item.url to image. And you see our image any moment from now, but let's just give it an height. So we're going to say style is going to be width is going to be assigned to width as well, but multiplied by 0.8. Let me just have that created here. I'm going to say const, which is going to be coming from this method from React Native. Also, the height is going to be coming from height multiplied by 0.22. And any moment from now, you should see our image right here. Also, I want to have the resize mode to be of cover, and also the class name to be rounded of not XL but 3XL. So any moment from now, you should see our image come right up. And yes, you can see the breaking news images. And all we have to do is just make sure that we add the text or the title, as you can see right here, and also maybe the author's name on each of these images. And in some cases that there are no images, we can as well use a fallback image so we can at least have an image right there. So after the image, I'm just going to have a linear gradient right here. And this linear gradient, I'm going to be importing it from, okay, this doesn't see it. I'm just going to import this, import linear gradient from Expo linear gradient. And inside of this is where I'm going to have the following properties. I'm going to say colors, and I'm going to set colors to, this is going to be an array. And I'm going to say this is going to look like this. So it's basically an array inside a curly braces. And I'm going to say transparent is going to be first value here. Also, I'm going to have this value here, but I'm going to set this to 0.9. Save that. Click on get started, and let's head back to our navigation, and let's just set this to home tab so we don't keep going back to the screen we don't want to. So in our breaking news card, let's just minimize this. Right here, I'm just going to say the style is going to be position is going to be absolute, bottom is going to be 0, the width is going to be 100%. This has to be a string, 100%. The height is also going to be 100%. And also the border, bottom left radius is going to be 24. And also the border bottom right radius is also going to be 24. And also the start is going to be x of 0.5 and also 0. And this as well is going to be 0.5. And we should be good to go. Let's just save that. So we have this error right here, which is saying cannot read property map of undefined. Then it means that we have a typo here. Let's just fix that and save that and see if that error disappears. So let's just check once again and see if everything is working as it should. Here, as you can see, it's working. So let's just have some text on it, and we're going to say, let's have a view like this. And this view is going to have the following class names. The class name for this is going to be absolute as well. And this is going to be bottom of 6, left of 4, justify of end. Height is going to be a custom 80% height. And inside of this, we're also going to have a view. And this view is going to have the following class name. It's going to be space y of 1. And after this, we're going to also have a view. And this view class name is going to be a max width of 98%. And inside of these views, we're going to have all the text. So we're going to say text, or we're going to say if the item dot title dot length is greater than 60, then we're going to say item dot title dot slice. We want to slice the text from 0 to 58, and after that we just want to add a 3 dots and also show the item dot title, but we also want to split it. That if you don't want to show the author's name after this, I want to split wherever we have a dash, split it. Else we're going to, let's see, we're going to just have an a right here. So basically, if the length is greater than 60, which is the text right here, let me just give these some nice styling and say this is text of white and text of base, font semi bold, and also capitalize it. Save that, and you can see it right here. So right here it says if the item right here, if the title is greater than 60, I just want to show the word or text from 0 to 58, and also add these three dots after it to show that okay, it is longer than this. And also I want to split the title because we have the author's name after this long text. And if I just remove this right here and have this like this, you're going to see the author's name in some cases. And I don't want that at all. As you can see, CNBC, I don't want that at all. So this method is what is handling all that. So I'm going to split after we have this dash and we are good to go. So after this, I'm also going to have a view, and this view is going to have a text inside. And this text is going to be saying, I want to have the item dot author, and if the length is greater than 20, I want to show the item dot author. Then I want to slice it between 0 to, I want to slice it between 0 to 20. And also I want to just show this. I don't want to have this here at all. So if the author's name is greater than 20, just slice it between 0 to 20, because in some cases we have longer news and I don't want to have that at all. And this error is saying canary property of null. So let's just have a ternary chaining method right here. And yes, let's just select that and see. So get started. And it still says canary the property of. Okay, it seems that we have a little error here. Let me also add the ternary operator here. And this should fix it right away. Yes, that is what I want. So let me just give this a proper class name and say the text is going to be neutral 300. Text is going to be SM. Font is going to be medium. And you're going to see our author's name right here. So in some cases, the author's name, they are longer than this. In some cases, we have 50 authors or 10 authors working on this particular news article. I just don't want to show all on the card right now. That's why I'm using this logic right here. So it seems our breaking news card is ready, and that is all we need to do in that component. So the next one we want to work on is this recommended section right here, which is basically going to have all these recommended news. And to get started with that, let's just close this, and let me just bring this down also. The header, let me close it. This, let me close this. I actually want to fix something here. Right here, I want to have this like this so that we don't keep going back to our initial page, which is the splash screen. And let me close this as well. So in the home screen, let me just remove this as well. We know we're already getting the data. So just after this, I'm just going to say I want to have a view. And this is also going to be using the mini header like we have it right here. So like I said, it is reusable and you can see it right here. Also, I want to have a scroll view right here. This scroll view is going to be saying the content container style is going to be padding, and the padding bottom is going to be HP of 80. No, let me remove that. This is going to be 80, and let's just check if that exists. HP doesn't exist. Good. Let me just import, and this is going to be height percentage to DP as HP. And let me just continue working on that. Then inside of this scroll view, I'm going to say if it's recommended is loading, then I want to show the loading icon. Else, I want to just show not entirely this. As you can see, using the map function shows us all the news already, but I don't want to use the map function here. I want to show a separate component right here. So I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to say I want to have a news section component right here. This is also going to be reusable, by the way. So this new section is going to have the following. It's going to have a label, and this label is going to be recommend. Let me fix this recommendation, and also the news props is going to be recommended. Let me see if we have the state right there. So recommended news. Let me just copy this and just put this right here. Now, if I head back to my component, let me just minimize everything. And inside my source, inside my component, I'm going to have a news section .js folder. And I'm just going to set, no, this is not what I want. And I'm just going to set a basic React Native functional component. And inside of this, I can as well just import this right away. And inside my new section is where I'm going to create the component for this entire recommended section. So inside of this view, I'm just going to have the following. I'm going to say class name is going to be space y of 2, bg of white. Then when the theme is dark, this is going to be bg of neutral, and this is going to be of 900. Then inside of here is where I'm going to have a flat list so that all our data is not displayed at once on our components. I don't want that at all. Now inside of this, I'm going to have something set up. I'm going to say nested scroll enable is going to be true. And I'm setting this because I'm using a scroll view in my home screen right here, as you can see. And scroll view and the flat list that we have here, they have similar scrolling. And I don't want this scrolling to be true at all. I want to disable it. So I want to say scroll enabled. I want to set this to false and save that. After this, I want to have the data to be news props. I'm just going to destructure that right away from here. I'm going to say news props. And also after this, I'm going to say shows vertical horizontal scroll view to be false. And the key extractor for this is going to be coming from not this entirely. Let me just set up an arrow function here and say this is going to be item and index, but also I'm going to be using the index.toString as the key extractor right here. Let me just remove that. Also, I want to have a render item here, and this render item is going to be coming from the render item function that we are going to create any moment from now. So up here is where I'm going to have my render item. So I'm just going to create an arrow function here that says render item. This is going to be looking like this. Good. That error should disappear right away. So I'm going to say return, because this is a function, I have to return something. And the first thing I want to return is a touchable opacity. And inside of this, I'm going to say this touchable opacity have a class name. And this class name is going to be margin bottom of 4, margin x of 4, space y of 1. And also, I'm going to say the key is going to be coming from the index. And I'm just going to import touchable opacity right away. That is why the error keeps showing on my screen. Let me just minimize this. Then after that, I'm going to say on press, whenever you press this, I want to have this right here, this function right there. And also, let me just bring that in right away. And this, I'm just going to go to the top of my component and just quickly create that undo click function. And I'm going to say navigation dot navigate and this is going to head to the news details screen, and we're going to pass all the item to it. And also I just need to create that navigation right there and also import this right away. So Here, whenever you click on each of these components, whenever you click on each of these articles, you're going to get the full details of the specific news, and that is what this function is doing right here. So inside of this touchable opacity, I want to have an image. I'm going to say this is going to be a view, and inside of this view, I'm going to say this class name is going to be flex of row, and also justify of start. The weight is going to be 100%, and there's going to be a shadow SM right here. And inside of this, I'm going to have my image. Then this image is going to have an image like this. Let me just import that before React shouts at me. So the source is going to be coming from URI item.url to image. Okay, let me just remove one of this. So the source is item.url to image. We also use a fallback image that we find on Google in case we can't get this specific image. Because in some cases, the API will not provide an image. So we have to use a fallback image so that this place doesn't remain blank. So let's move on and say the star right here is going to be width, and this which is going to be saying HP of, let me just fix this to be 9. All right, here, let me just import this, import. Then also, I want to have an height as well. And this height is also going to say HP of 10. And we should be seeing our data right here. But let me just reload. It seems our app is messing up. So while that's reload, you're going to see our app right away. So let's just click on get started. And you should see our recommended news image right now, but it says item doesn't exist. Cool. And that's because we are yet to destructure the item right here. We're going to say item and index. Save that, and you should see our recommended news right away. And if that is not displayed, as you can see, we have our recommended image right here. So you can see there's a news here that doesn't have an image. We want to use a fallback image in case that happens. So we're just going to say else. Let's just use this and see if that is a real image source. But it seems okay. So we have it right here as well. So in case there are some news that doesn't have an image, it is going to use this fallback image right here. So let me just minimize this. I want to have some text here, and the way to do that is basically after this view, I'm just going to say I want to have content, and this right here, I'm going to have a view, and this view is going to say class name is going to be width, and this is going to be 70%. Padding left is going to be 4. Justify is going to be center. Space Y is going to be 1. And right here, I'm going to say I want to have the author. After this, I want to have a text. And this text is going to have the following properties. Let me just say, if the item dot author dot length, let me just use an optional chaining for this. So if the item dot author dot length is greater than 20, then I want to say item dot author dot slice, and I want to slice it like this, and you can see the author's name right there. And this text is going to have the following properties. I'm going to say text of extra small, font is going to be bold, text is going to be gray, and 900 by the way. And when it is dark, this is going to be text neutral, and that is going to be 300. And right here, I'm going to have the title, and the title is going to be text, and the class name right here is going to be text neutral of 800, capitalize, max width of 90%. When it is dark, That is, if our device is on dark mode, I want the text to be of white. And oops, our app crashed already. As you can see, virtual devices are somewhat lazy sometimes. So I'm just going to restart it anyway very soon. That is not an issue. I'm going to say the style is going to be font size, and the font size is going to be HP, and the HP is going to be 1.7. So let me just look for Expo right here and start it back again. And let me just see if I have HP already. Okay, I have it. And also, I'm going to say the font family. The font family is going to be Space Gray Text, not medium, but bold. Let me just select this. And this might throw an error that my font doesn't exist. Let me just quickly have this like this. I just want to make sure that these text and these authors right there, they are not where I want them to be. So let me just cut everything right here. And let me just put this right here. And that should fix my issue right now. And also, I want to make sure that this view is the one that is housing every one of them, and that should look just like what we have here. Let's just give it a proper styling and we should be good to go. So inside of here, I'm going to say if the item.title length is greater than 80, actually I want this to be 50, then I'm just going to slice it between 0 to 50, and I'm going to add 3 dots to it and also just show the item.title. As you can see right here, we have our news. And also I want to show a date. As you can see right here, I want to show the date and also this bookmark icon. So just after this text right here, I'm just going to say I want to be a date here, and also I want to have a text. And this text is basically going to say published at, save that, and you should see it right away. But that is not exactly what I want. Let me just give it a proper styling first. And this is going to be text of extra small, text of gray 700. When we are on dark mode, I want this to be text of neutral and this to be 300. Now, as you can see this date right here, it is not giving the exact date that we have right here. This one is showing the exact day, the month, the day, and the year. And in this case, I just want to format this properly. So I'm going to create a function that will handle that just right here. Just after this, let me just minimize this for now. Up here is where I'm going to create the method. So now this is where I'm going to create the function that will handle the formatting of the date. So I'm going to say format date, and I'm going to call this is date, and also I'm now going to say const options is going to be weekday, and this is going to be short. I want the short weekday, and also the day, it has to be 2 digits, and also the month is also going to be short. The year is going to be numeric. Now I'm not going to use the parameters that I set up. I'm going to say const date is going to be new date, and we're going to pass the is 0 date right here. And finally, I'm going to return date dot to local date string, and I'm going to say undefined and also pass in the options. Now I can use this format date, copy this, open my render item right here where we have the date. I'm just going to have this right here. I'm going to pass this, and I'm just going to remove. I'm going to have everything here inside a curly braces, and I'm going to remove this, and you're going to see our dates just as we want, Thursday, October 19, 2023. So next thing I want to do is have the bookmark icon right here, and just under this view, I'm going to have a bookmark comment right here. And after this, I'm going to say view, And this view is going to say class name, and this class name is going to be width of 10%, and also justify of center. And inside of this view, I'm going to have a touchable opacity, and this touchable opacity is going to have a bookmark square icon, and this is going to have a color of green. Let me just save that, and you should see that right away. Although I don't want that to be an outline, I want this to be a solid. Let me just save that, and let me just change this, and you see the changes right away. Save that. Now I want to be able to select each of these. Now, as you can see, that has changed. Now, to the main functionality of our code right here. Everything here will be reusable. All this code we are creating is going to be reusable, especially when we get to the discover section, also the saved section, also the search section is going to be reusable. So we have to set this up properly. Now, I want to do two things here, or three at least. The first one is when I select this article, I want it to be saved and I can view it later. Also, I want it in a case whereby it is only when I select a news or bookmark a news that I want the green to be there, and the rest that are not bookmarked, I want this to be gray instead. So to set up that functionality, I'm just going to head back to the top of my code. I'm just going to minimize this as well. So I'm just going to say create an arrow function called toggle bookmark, and I'm going to say and save. And this is going to be an async function, and I'm going to pass in the item and also the index as well. Then this is going to look like this. And also I'm going to try and catch some things. And let me just catch something as well. I'm going to catch the errors. So right here, I'm going to catch the error. And I'm just going to console.log the error. Now inside of this try, I want to do some things first. I want to create a variable called saved articles. And I'm going to await it and assign it to async storage. And let me just import that before it throws an error. Async storage from React Native async storage. Now, also I want to create a variable called saved articles array. And I want to say if saved articles is true, then I want to pass the data that I'm getting right here into JSON. Else, I want to set it to an empty array. Now, the next thing I want to do is check if this specific article is already bookmarked. So I'm going to say const is article bookmarked. And also I'm going to say saved articles array, which we created right here. And I'm going to use a method on it. I'm going to say sum. So I'm going to say inside of this, I want to have a parameter and also set up an arrow function. This is going to be called saved articles.url. And if the URL is the same as the item.url, then I want to save this into this state. And I'm going to say saved articles as we have it right here. Let me just change this to save article. So basically what I'm doing is if the article that I have saved on my device is equal to the item URL, that is the specific item URL, then I want to say, okay, it is already bookmarked. And after this, I'm going to use an if else statement. And I'm going to say if the articles is not bookmarked, I want to do something. I want to say saved articles array dot push. That is, if the article is not saved, I want to push the specific item into our async storage. And I'm going to say also await async storage dot set item. Now I want to set the items. I want to set this to saved articles and also stringify the JSON that we are passing right here. And after this, I'm going to say create a variable called updated status, and this is going to be assigned to, I want to spread all the bookmarked status, and let me just, and after this, I'm going to say updated status is going to be using the index and it's going to be true. And after that, I'm going to set bookmark status to be updated status. I still have to create all of these states. So let me just head back here. And I'm going to create a state that says bookmark status is an empty array. Also, I want to also create a state here. I'm just going to say const URL list. It's going to be set URL list, and we're going to set it to an empty array as well. Then after this, then we have a little typo here. Every code that is here has to be inside of here. My bad. Here, I just want to set if his article is not bookmarked is when I want to do all of this. And it says use state doesn't exist. Let me just import that right away. And moving on in our code. So if the article is not bookmarked or is not true, that is when I want to set the articles and all. Else, if it is bookmarked, I can now create a variable called updated saved articles array, and I'm going to just filter it like this, and also have an arrow function here that says, so basically what this code is saying is if the article is already bookmarked, I can as well remove it from the array of saved articles. And after this, I want to also await and say using async, I want to set this to be looking like this. And let me just remove this. And also after this, I want to say const. Let me just bring this up. I'm going to say const updated status is going to spread the bookmark status, that is everything that is here. Then I can now say updated status is going to be using the index of each item, and that is going to be false. And finally, I want to set the bookmark status to be the updated status that we have right here. Moving on, in the catch, this is basically going to just say error saving news, and this is ready. Now, all I have to do is just copy this and just head back into my touchable opacity for this individual bookmark. And right here, I'm going to say on press, I'm going to create an arrow function right here, which says toggle bookmark and saved. And I'm going to pass in the item. And also I want to pass in the index. And finally, I don't want to show all these bookmarks to be green. I want to conditionally render it and check if this article is bookmarked. That is when you should change this color to green. So in the color right here, I'm just going to change this to a curly braces and say bookmark status. I'm going to use the index and say if that is true, then just set this to green. Else, it's supposed to be inside of this. Just change this to gray, and you're going to see all our articles are gray. Immediately I select this, it's going to change to green. So let me just do that in 3, 2, 1. As you can see, that has been set to green. If I also select this as well, it's going to change the color to green as well. And if I select it again, I've already removed it from the list and it has changed back to gray. So let me just select this as well. So all the article that we select, it is going to be here in our save screen, and we're going to work on that screen very soon. So, and finally, when we are in this component, I want to be able to set a use focus effect, which will load the saved articles from async storage whenever the component mounts. So imagine we're just coming to our news app, and once we get into this screen, I want to be able to load all the articles that we already have saved, and you can see the green icon right here. So all we have to do is just head back to the top of our code. Let's just minimize this. Let's minimize this as well. And under this, I'm going to say use focus effect. And this is going to be looking like this. I'm just going to import that right away. And inside of this use focus effect, I also want to use a hook to remember the function that we have created. So I'm just going to have something like this. And inside of this, I'm going to say I want to have an arrow function just like this. And inside of this, I'm going to say create a variable called const load saved articles. And this is going to look like this. I want to load all the articles that I already have saved in my async. And I'm going to try and also catch something, which is basically the error. I'm going to pass the error here, and I'm just basically going to say console.log error saving saved articles. And here I'm going to create a variable called const saved articles, and I'm going to get all the articles. Also, I'm going to say saved articles array. I'm just going to pass the saved articles that I have right here. Now I want to check if each URL in that specific saved article exists, and I'm going to map through it. I'm going to say const is article bookmark list is going to be URL list dot map, and this is going to be looking like this. And I'm going to say saved articles array.sum, just like we have it created before. And finally, I want to set the bookmark status for all the item based on the loaded data. So I'm just going to say set bookmark status to be this exactly, and we are good to go. Then finally, I just want to call the function that we have created right here. So just under this, I'm just going to say load saved articles, and I'm just going to call the function like that. And finally, I want to be able to use the URL list here in the dependency and also set the navigation right here so that whenever the navigation changes or the URL list changes, it is going to reload or refresh. So all I have to do is just create a use effect just above this. And this use effect is basically going to look like this. And we're not going to be using the bookmark status at all. We're going to be using the news props. And inside of this, I just want to set the URL list. That's all I want to do right here. I'm going to say const URLs is going to be news props dot map, and I'm going to map just the item.url. And finally, I want to set the URL list to be just the URLs, and we are good to go with this. So whenever we enter our component, it is going to fetch all the articles and just check if this article has been bookmarked. If it has, it is going to turn them to green. If not, it is not going to turn them to gray. And this is what all this is doing. So I'm just going to reload my app. Let me just head back to this component right here. Let me just select this, and hopefully we don't get any error. Exactly, we don't have any error on our terminal right here. Let me just bring this down, and you're going to see our breaking news any moment from now. It is still loading. That is why it is showing that loading icon. And yes, we are good to go with our, let me just change this back to home tabs, and we are good to go with our new section. And this new section, it is reusable. We can use them in our components, and that is what we are going to do right now. So let's just head back to our home screen, or instead go to our discover screen. So this is the design we'll be creating for our discover screen. It has this text, and also it is going to be showing the news right here based on the categories that we have selected right here. So this is going to be pretty quick, and let's just jump into creating this. So in our discover screen, our implementation is going to be quite different from what we did in the home screen. In this discover screen, we're going to set up some implementations in which whenever we select each of these categories, it is going to fetch the data based on the category that we selected, and it is going to display them right here, and also check if this article is already bookmarked, as you can see right here. And that is basically what we'll be doing in this discover section, and this is not going to take as much time as our home screen because this component right here we already have it created and all the functionalities, and we're just going to reuse it. And let's just jump into doing that right now. So inside of our code, so to get started with these, we're just going to head back into our discover screen. And here, we're just going to change this to be a safe aerial view. And this is going to be aerial. And let's just import that from React Native context. And we're going to see this as a class name. And it's going to be padding top of 8. Background of white. On dark mode, I want this to be BG of neutral. And this is going to be 900. Also inside of this, I'm going to just have my status bar right here coming from Expo, but it is going to be based on the color theme. So I'm going to save the color scheme, is equal to dark. Then I want to use a light mode, else I want this to be dark. I'm just going to import this right away by saying const color scheme is coming from the use color scheme method from native wind, not React Native, native wind. And also after this, I just want to have a main view here. And inside of this main view, I want to have an header. And also inside of this view, let me just set this up properly. I'm just going to say I want to have a view here, and this view is going to have the following class name. The class name here is going to be px of 4, margin bottom of 6, justify of between, and here I'm going to have a text, and this text is basically going to say discover, and it's going to have the following properties. Class name is going to be text 3xl, text of green 800, and on dark mode I want the text to be white, and also I want to have a style right here, and the font family to be space text of bold, as you can see right here. Let me just remove this, and as well I can have a flex of 1 in this safe area view right here. So after this text I can also have another text right here, and this text is going to say news from all over the world. And here I'm just going to say I want to have a class name here. This is going to be text of base, text of gray 600. On dark mode, this is going to be text of neutral. This is going to be 300. Save that. And let's just check our design if that looks like what we have right here. So it seems there's a little issue right here with the font. So let's just head back into our code. And right here, we're just going to see style is going to be space text medium, and that should look like what we have in our design. Then let's just minimize this. And the next section we're going to create is the search section. As you can see right here, this search section is what we want to create next. So here we're also going to have a view, and this view is going to have the following class name. This is going to be mx of 4, margin bottom of 8, flex of row, p of 2, which is padding of 2, padding y of 3, justify of between, items of center, background neutral is going to be 100, and rounded is going to be full. Then inside of this view as well, let me just minimize this. And inside of this view, I'm going to have a touchable opacity, and let me just import that right away. And right inside of this, I'm just going to say this as the following class name. It's going to be margin left of 2. Also, I want to have an icon here that says magnifying glass icon, and this is going to have the following properties. Size is going to be 25, but I want this to be inside two double quotes like this. And also the color, I want that to be of gray, as you can see right here. But I don't want this to be a circle magnifying icon. I just want this to look like this. Let me just remove that. Then after this, I want to have a text input. And inside of this, let me just import it right away. I'm going to say on press in is going to actually take me to the search screen. This is going to be navigation dot navigation, dot navigate, and I'm going to navigate to the search page. Let me just create that by saying const navigation. It's going to be use navigation, and let me just import that right away. So you can see our text input shaping up gradually. Now I want to have a placeholder text, by the way. I'm going to say placeholder is going to be search for news. Also placeholder text color is going to be of gray. Also the class name is going to be padding left of 4, flex of 1, font of medium, text of black, tracking of wider. So as you can see, our text input is ready. So after this search right here, I want to have the category section. Category section. And if you check our design, this is the category we're trying to create. And we're just going to set up some basic data that we need for these categories in our constant folder right here. So inside of our constant, we're going to create an index.js file. And this is basically going to say we want this to have a categories variable, and we assign it to an array of objects, and this has an ID and title of business. ID2 is entertainment, and so on. So we have to import this. Let's just close this. Let's copy this. Let's close this. And inside of our discover screen, right here, we're going to have a view, and this view property is going to have class name. It's going to be flex of row, mx of 4. And here we're going to have a categories card, but let's just have that created first so that we don't get funny errors. So I'm just going to say categories card.js. I'm going to create a basic boiler code for this. Then now discover screen, I'm just going to, do I need this? No, I don't need it anymore. Let me just close that. I'm just going to say categories card. Let's just import that. And you see it any moment from now. Also, I want to have, as you can see, you have it right there. And I just want to pass in 1 or 2 props. I'm going to say categories is going to be coming from categories. We don't have that created yet, and it's going to throw an error. Also, I want to have an active category to be assigned to active category. And finally, I want undo change function to be here. Undo change category, and that is what that is going to look like. So this is going to help us change the categories that we have. So the next thing is to set all these states, or create them rather. So let's just head back to the top of our code here and say const. We're going to say active category is set to, and by default this is going to be set to business because that is the first category that we have right here, business. So we want that to be active by default, and we're going to fetch the business data by default. So after this, I'm just going to also create another variable. I'm going to call this discover news. I'm also going to set discover news to an empty array. And yes, that is all I need to create for now. So let me just head back to the top of my code and also create the function for the undo change category. So I'm just going to say const undo category change is going to be looking like this. And inside of here, I'm going to do 2 things. First thing is to set the active category, which you have right here. So whenever we click on each of this category, this is going to set the category to the active category. And also, I'm going to say set discover news. Set discover news. And this is going to be an empty array. And finally, that is all we need to do for now. Then we have to fetch our categories data based on what the user selected. And also after this, I want to set a use effect hook. And this use effect is going to look like this. And the use effect, I'm just basically going to say set the active category, and maybe also just console.log our active category so that we can see the category that the user selected. And after this, I want to pull all our data, and this says categories doesn't exist. That's fine. Let's just import our categories categories data. Let's see categories. And this is coming from, this should be coming from utils and categories. And no, we don't have this in the utils, but we have this in the constants instead. And yes, that should fix the error immediately. And let's just check once again. Yes, that is what we want. So these categories is what we are assigning to the categories right here. Once we have the design ready, you're going to see all the categories in a bit. But before we do that, let's just fetch our data for the basic business articles for the day. So the next thing we want to do is fetch our business category data. As you can see in the design right here, all the articles here is related to the business. Let's just set up the function for that. So in our home screen, the function that we created for this, let's just copy this and use this template as well. So here in our categories card or in our discover screen, we're just going to paste this right here. And we have to change in some things first. Let's import this. And also this is going to be known as is discover loading. And also this is going to be taking a unique key, which is going to be discover news. And also I want to have the active category here set so that we can use this to fetch our data. Because in our fetch discover news, you can remember it's taking a parameter, and the parameter we have to set it as well. And on sources, I want to get the data.articles, but also I just don't want to set this like this. I want to set this to discover news. And before I set this, I also want to first check something and filter some things, because some of these articles, they are removed on the API and we don't want to show them at all once an article has been removed. Because if you don't filter it, it's going to show removed here and it's going to show nothing. It's going to show no data at all. I don't want that at all. So I'm going to use a filter method from JavaScript and say const filter news is going to be data.article.filter, and I'm going to filter it by saying, and I'm going to say I have an arrow function created right here and say this is article dot title. If it is not equal to removed, then you have to filter it. So we're just going to set the article right here as well. So that is ready, and all I have to do is just pass in this filter news. So this is going to basically remove all articles that has the title as removed, and we are good to go. We can start using our discover news data. So I'm just going to copy this, head back to the code. And once this is ready, we can use our discover news whenever we want to pass the news section data right here. So all I have to do is just head back to the bottom of my code right here, and I'm just going to say I want to have a view here, and this view here, the height, let's first say the class name, and the class name, let me just cut this and have this right here. This is going to be height of full. Let me just scroll up and let's just check our discover screen to see if there's no error so far. So here I'm going to have the header title, and also I'm going to have a text, and it seems there's an error here that says, let's just check real quick. Type error, query function is not a function. Let me just check what we are doing wrong. Okay, this needs to be an arrow function, just like this. So that error should disappear and we shouldn't get all these type errors anymore. And it still says query function is not a function. So let's just leave that and just continue with our code. We're going to fix that issue any moment from now. So this text is going to say discover, and this text is also going to say class name, and the class name here is going to say text XL, and the dark mode is going to have a text of white. But also I want to wrap my text inside of this view, and this view is going to have the following class names. margin vertical of 4, mx of 4, flex of row. We can actually just remove this and just say this to margin of 4, flex of row, justify of between, items of center. And this text right here, I just want to have some properties as well here. I want to have the style. I want the style to be font bold of space grid text bold, and this is what I want. After this, I also want the text just like this, and this text is going to say view all. I can as well use the reusable component that we created earlier. And yes, this is going to be text of base, text of green 800. And in the dark mode, I want to use text of neutral, and this is going to be 300. So after this view is where I want to show all my components that I have right here. So I'm going to say if is discover loading is true, then I want to show you a specific component, else I want to show you a specific component. And here I want to show a loading components that we always use. And also if loading is not showing, I want to show our real components, and that is basically we're going to have a scroll view here. And this scroll view is going to have the following properties. It is going to say content container style, and the padding bottom is going to be HP of 70. I don't think we have our HP created already. Let's just scroll to the top of our screen and import this as HP, just like we've done in previous components. And instead of this, we're going to say, let's use our reusable components news section. And this new section is going to say news props is going to be assigned to discover news. And also the label is going to be known as discovery. Save that. And let's just check our discover component and see if we are getting, as you can see, we have the business component right here, and we are good to go. The next we have to do is just show our categories right here. So inside of, let's just minimize this. So inside of our categories card, we're going to destructure some things first. And the first thing is going to be categories. Categories, active category, and also undo change category. Let me just check if that is what we have. Let me just copy this. It seems to be undo category change. Yeah, it's the same. So let's just continue with our code. Right here in this view, under this, I'm going to have a scroll view. And inside of this scroll view, I'm going to say the scroll view is going to be of horizontal. Also shows horizontal scroll view will be false. The class name for this is going to be not flex of 1, but space x of 4. And also I want to have the content container style. I want this to be padding right of 20. Save that. Head back into our discover components. And inside of this scroll view, I'm just going to map through all our categories. And because our categories data that we have is basically just 6 or 7, we don't need to use a flat list for that. We can easily just use a map function in JavaScript for that. So we're going to say categories dot map. And inside of this map, we're going to also have an arrow function. And this arrow function is going to say, let's first destructure something here by saying category and also index. And inside of this, we're going to first declare some variables. We're going to say let is active be equal to category dot title, which is going to be assigned to active category. This is basically going to set this active category to green whenever it is selected. Also, we're going to say let active button class be equal to is active, And if that is true, then just send the background color to be green of, let's say, 700. Else, just use BG black of 10. And also, whenever it is dark, background of neutral, not 800 but 600. Let's just save that. And finally, let's say let active. We don't want this here. We want this to be right here. And also let active text class be assigned to is active. And if that is also true, let's just use text of white. Else use text of not black but gray 600. And also when it is dark, use text of neutral, not 300 but 600. Save that. So whenever we select each of these categories, this is what we handle all the changing of the background color or the text color and all. So after this, we're just going to return something, and we're just going to say return. We're just going to return a touchable opacity. Touchable opacity. Let's just import that straight away. And inside of this, and it says each child in a list should have a unique key. No problem about that. I'm going to just come here and say the key is going to be index, and also an onPress is going to be undo change category, and we're going to assign the category title as we have in our, let's just check our components again. Inside of our constant, you can see that the title is business, so we're assigning this individual title to our function that we have created right here. And finally, we're going to have a class name, and this class name is going to be flex items of center space y of 1. And inside of this, I'm going to have a view, and this view is going to have the following class name. I'm going to say rounded is going to be of full, py of 2, px of 4. Then also I'm going to add something to this, which is the active button class. And you can see them coming up one by one. Let me just remove this. And inside of this view is where I'm going to have my text. And my text is going to basically be saying category.title. And you're going to see all the titles right away, as you can see. Let's give it a proper styling by saying class name is going to be not this. It's going to be capitalize. Let me just put this inside the double quotes. Capitalize. And I'm going to add this to active test class. And let me just check once again. As you can see, it is coming up. So now we select entertainment, the text is going to change to white and the background is going to change to green, and also fetch the data related to entertainment. And lastly, let me just add something after this. Let me say the style is going to be font size is going to be HP of 1.6. Do we have HP? No, we don't. Let's just import that right away. Import height as percentage as HP, and this should fix our code. And I'm doing that because we want our text to be responsive, our component to be responsive as well. So let's just check and see what we have created. And if you check our design right here, you can see it is almost looking like what we have, maybe just little padding and all. But anyway, this is what we want for our component. So all we have to do is just test our functionality and see if it truly works. So if I select entertainment, it is going to fetch data related to entertainment. We're going to see the data right here. And also if I select general, it is going to fetch data related to general, and you can see our component works perfectly. And yes, that is all we want. If you select the health category, you're going to see every news related to health right here, and you can see the images right here. So if I select this, it's going to bookmark this article and we are good to go. So the next thing we're going to work on is the saved screen right here. So all the news that we have bookmarked already, we want to have them displayed here. So if we just close this, and let's just head back to our saved screen, and let's just minimize this. This is where we're going to work on the saved screen, and let's start with that. So right here in the save screen, this is the design that we'll be creating for the save screen. And it contains all these articles that we already have bookmarked right here. And this is what that looks like. So let's jump into creating these. And most of the components that we're going to be using here, and also the functionalities that is making our article get bookmarked and all, we already have them created in the previous components or screens. So we don't need to create them again. All we have to do is just copy and paste and also refactor one or two things that we need to refactor, and we are good to go. So without further delay, let's jump into creating this. First things first, in our view here, let's just have a save area view. Let me just delete this. And also, I'm going to have the following properties inside of this. I'm going to say this is going to be padding of 4, background of white, flex of 1. And when we are on dark mode, we want the BG neutral to be of 900. And also I want to have a status bar right here. So I have to also say status bar coming from Expo status bar is going to look like this. And this status bar is going to say the style. The style is going to be if the color scheme is dark, then I want to use light status bar, else I just want to use a dark status bar. And over here I'm going to create the variable for this color scheme right here, and it's coming from use color scheme. And let me just import that from native wind, and that should fix our issue. As you can see right here, it's not even an issue, by the way. And after this, I'm just going to create an header comment right here, and this header is going to look like this right here. So I'm just going to create a view here, and this view class name is going to look like this. I'm going to say flex of row, justify of between items of center, and I'm going to have this text inside of this, and this text is basically going to say saved articles, and the class name for this is going to be font of bold, text of extra large, text of green 800, and the dark mode I'm going to say text of white. Then also I want the style to be of font family of space gray text bold. And after this, I'm going to have a touch able opacity. Sorry about these little typo errors. And let's just import it right away from React Native. Let's just remove the touchable. We don't actually want it. There's also another component called pressable, in case you don't want to use touchable opacity, and you can read more about their usage. And this touchable opacity is going to have a text here, and this text is going to basically say clear. And let's just give this, let's see, okay, we have it right here. So this touchable opacity, let's give it a class name. Let's style it up properly and say bg green of 800, py, which is a padding of vertical, is going to be 1, padding of horizontal is going to be 4, rounded is going to be large. And also we want to have an unpress is going to be, and after that I want to style the text right here. This text is going to say text of white, and in the dark I want this to be text of white whenever we're in the dark mode. So we can as well just remove these basically, because we still have the text of white right here. And also I want to have a style right here, And this style is going to say font family of space, grotesque, medium. And that is what that looks like. Although we still need to add one or two padding to that to make sure that it looks just like what we want. And let's just say the padding of Y, let's change it to 2. And that should look like that. Yes. So once the wider is done, all we have to do is just bring in these reusable components that we have. And we're just going to head back to our Discover screen. And where we have this section right here, inside of our new section, we're just going to scroll up. And this flat list itself, we're going to bring it in. So let's just copy it right here. And inside of our save screen, let's just minimize this. Over here, we're just going to paste this. First things first, we have to import this. And we also have to change some things like the data, which is not news props anymore. This is going to be something else, which is saved articles. So before we go to the screen, let's just fix all of these minor typos. And the first thing I want to change is right here. I just want to have a space Y of 2. And also I want to have a style. And this style is going to say margin vertical is going to be using HP, and this HP is going to be 2. Let me just change everything here to HP. So at the top here, I'm just going to say import height as percentage as DP, height percentage to DP as HP. So that is fixed. I still need to bring in this data. So I'm going to head to the top of my code and create some states. And the first one I'm going to say is const. I'm going to have saved articles. And it is this saved articles that I'm going to assign. Let me just import this state. It is this saved articles that I'm going to assign to this, not the news props. So basically, we still have to pull the saved articles that we have in our async storage. But before that, let's also create another variable. We're going to call this bookmark status. And also finally, URL lists. We're going to say const URL list. Good. And also I want to bring in my undo click. So whenever I select each of these article, it is going to still bookmark or remove it. Also, let me bring in my undo click function. So let me just head back to new section and head to, do we have it here? Good. We have it here. So whenever we select each of these articles, it is going to take us to the news details screen where you can see the full information about the news. So I'm just going to head back to my save screen. I'm just going to paste this here. We're not going to change anything here. It works the same way. Also, I want to bring in our use effect that we have right here. And I'm just going to copy everything here in its entirety. And I'm just going to paste that right here. But this is going to be non-news props. This is going to be saved articles. Let me just replace that. And the code works exactly the same way, mapping through all the data that we have. But this is going to be saved articles as well. So let me just minimize that. That is ready. Also, I want to bring in the function to format my date. As you can see here, we also want to have it as well. So the new section, format date function, copy it in the save screen, put it there. Nothing is changing there. We don't need to change anything. Also, whenever I toggle this bookmark, I want to remove it from the list, basically. So this is going to change a little bit, but nothing major is going to change. So let me just copy our toggle bookmark and save. Now save screen, let me just paste this here and we can refactor this code to fit this specific component. And first things first, this will stay the same way. Also, this will stay the same way. We don't need to change anything here. As well as this is going to stay the same way. We don't need to change anything regarding that. Also, this is going to stay the same way. This is going to stay the same way. This is going to stay the same way. In fact, we don't need to change anything here. And the next thing I want to bring in is the use focus effects that we have in our new section right here. Let me just copy this and head back to my save screen. Let me just paste this right here and make sure I import everything that I need to import. So basically here, I think we might need to change some things. The first things first here, which is basically letting us check if an article is saved. We're not going to remove it, but also we're going to remove everything that is here. We're going to remove this. And the only thing that we need to do is just also change this to be, let me refactor this to be set saved articles to be saved articles array that we have right here. And that is all we need to do regarding this. The load save article function is being called here. That remains the same. And also the navigation and URL list remains the same. That is all regarding this component or this method. And also in our new section, our famous rendered item function is where we are going to work on next, which is basically going to show every of these individual components that we have right here. Let's just check if we have them imported already. Let's just check. Image is image imported. Let's import it. Also, let's check. HP published art. It seems this is ready, and let me import this as well. We're using solid, by the way. And yes, nothing is really changing here as well. We are good to go. And let me just check my new section. And yes, we don't need to change anything here as well. We're using a fallback image right here. And yeah, we're good to go regarding the rendered item that we have assigned right here. So fingers crossed, this is going to work as it should. Let's just go into the component saved. Oops, it throws an error saying use effect doesn't exist. So let's just import that right away. And that error should disappear now. Let's just head back into our saved screen. And navigation also doesn't exist. Let me just create that right away. Navigation is going to be assigned to use navigation. And I'm just going to assign this to this. Let's check again. And you can see saved articles right here. And we should be seeing all our bookmarked news right here. That is this bookmarked article. We're supposed to be seeing it right here. But if we are not, then let's just console.log and see if we are getting all data. So let's just save this. And let's just check our, it says error loading saved articles because async storage doesn't exist. My bad. We are yet to import async storage. Let's just import that right away. And you should see all our bookmarked components right away. So let's just minimize this. And also, let's just remove the console.log. So if you head back to our home screen, and if you bookmark this article right here, we click it, you bookmark it, and if you check on the save screen, you're going to see the news right here. The same applies to this as well. If you check the discover section, the business, and if we select this as well, and also Elon Musk, Nvidia, China, and we head back to our saved component right here, you're going to see all the news articles that were already bookmarked. But this is not scrollable yet. Let's make it scrollable. And also, whenever you select this, it will remove it from this specific component. So let's click it. If you select that, you're going to see remove from the list. Let's remove China house prices article. And it is going to remove from this section as well. That is all we need to do regarding this. And let's just check if we have little design issues. As we have it here, this is supposed to be rounded Excel or something. Let's just check the new section. And where we have our image right here, we're supposed to have a class name of rounded of Excel or something. So let's just fix that. So our class name right here, let's just change this to rounded of large. And if you check our home screen right here, you should be able to see the components change to rounded of large any moment from now. As you can see, that has changed already. If you get back to your home as well, you can see that has changed. Right here, we're just going to add that also. So let's just copy this. Inside of our save screen, where we have our, let's just minimize the function for this. And here where we have our image, let's just put that right here. And it should change to rounded of large also, as you can see. I think we also have an issue here regarding our left padding right here. We don't really want that to happen. So we're just going to remove this. We don't want that at all. We want our components to be starting from this section already because we already added the margin horizontal in this component right here. So as you can see, padding of 4, we already added padding to this already. We don't need to add to the inner components again. So let's just leave that as it is. So our component is ready, and all we have to do is just make sure that this is scrollable as well. So currently now we can't scroll it because we already have that disabled. So we're just going to remove these two props and save it. And if you just scroll, you should be able to see all the scroll articles. But anyway, I'm just going to add one or two things to this flat list right here. I'm going to say content, container style is just going to be padding of bottom is going to be HP of not 10 but 2. Now, if I head back to my discover screen and I add as many articles that I want, let me just scroll up as well. Tesla Cybertrucks, China House. And if I go back to my save screen, you're going to see them by the way. And if you scroll up, you're going to see all the articles that we have bookmarked and we are good to go. So our save screen is ready and you can remove an article from here. So if I click on this, it's going to remove that specific article. You're going to see this. As you can see, it has been removed. If I go down, which I will not by the way, I'm just going to click this. China House will be removed from the article and we are good to go. Next thing we are going to work on is the search screen where we can search for specific news that we want. And this is going to make a lot of sense when we start. So without further delay, let's jump back into our search screen and let's start working on the search screen. Once we are done with the search screen, we're also going to work on the news details. That is, whenever we select this particular article, we're going to be seeing the full details about the article and what it entails. And we're going to be using WebView as well because the URL or the dataset in this API does not provide the entire description of the news. It is too much. They can't do that. All they have to do was create a URL of a live website containing that news. And we're just going to use React WebView to check all the news for that specific article rather. So let's jump into creating the search screen and let's implement the new details screen after that. So let's jump into that. So in the search screen, this is what we'll be creating, guys. This is what the search screen looks like. You can search for specific news that you want from the API and it's going to show you all the results as well. It is quite similar to the saved article that we have here, but in this case, we are searching, but the component layout is quite similar. So let's just jump straight into creating this. We're going to say this is going to be class name. And this class name is going to be flex of 1, background of white. And when it is dark, we want the background to be neutral of 900. So let's just head back to the search screen and see what we are working on. Good. After this, we're going to say we want a view as well. And this view is going to have a class name that looks like this. We're going to say mx of 4, margin bottom of 3, margin top of 12, flex of row, padding of 2, justify of between items of center, bg of neutral of 100, rounded of large. And inside of this, we're going to have some things set up. And we are basically just going to have a text input right here. And this text input is going to say the placeholder is going to be search for news, basically. Or let's just say it seems we have a typo here. Search for your news. And also placeholder text color is going to be of gray. And also we want to have a class name right here. And this class name is going to say fonts of medium, text of black, tracking of wider, padding of 3, padding y of 1. The width is going to be 90%. Now, whenever we search for any news right here, we're going to use an event list now to make sure that the data is passed to the appropriate section of the function and it fetches the data from the API. And to do that, all we have to do is just right here, we're going to say we want to have an unchange. And this unchange is going to be known as handle text the bounce. And yes, the reason I'm doing this, I'm going to explain it in a moment from now. So I'm just going to create another variable called const handle text the bounce. And this is going to be using use callback hook from React, use callback. And this is going to use the bounce, by the way. This is coming from Lodash. This is going to just delay our handle search for a couple of seconds. And this is going to take in handle search. Handle search. Also, the time is going to be 400 and it's going to take an empty dependency. Now, this handle search, we need to create it. Let's just rename this to be camel case. And right here is where we're going to create the undo search function. So we're going to say const undo search. This is going to be async, by the way, and this is going to be search. And we're going to say we want to set some state first. So we're going to say const loading and also set loading to be false by default. Also const results. Let me just put this inside. I'll just say results and set results to an empty dependency as well. Also, I want to say const. I want to say the search term. Also set search term to be just an empty string like that. And also let me just import the bounce from Lodash. We already have that installed already. That shouldn't be an issue. And finally, let me just say const navigation from use navigation, and we should be good to go. Let's just import this as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is set up this undo search, and I'm going to say if the search is true, and also if the search dot length is greater than 2, then that is when I want to do something. And first I want to set the loading to be true, which is false by default. And after this I want to set the result to be an empty dependency, and also set search term to be equal to the search keyword that the user is searching for, in case he's searching for Tesla, Israel, USA, Korea, China, and the likes, even Russia. If you search for Russia, you're able to see the results as you want. Now we want to do something, and that is basically just trying and catching something. And catch is going to be error. And if you have any error, you have to do just console.log. And let me just remove this as well. I hope we don't have any typo here. And let me just check once again. So it seems we have an issue right here. And yes, let me just work on the code right here and say const data is going to be await fetch search news, which is coming from our API that we already set up properly. And we are assigning the search keyword that the user specifically searched for right here to the function. So also I want to say set loading. I want to set it to false. Good. And after that, I'm also going to say if the data I'm getting and data.articles is true, then that is when I want to say set result to be data.articles. And let me just remove this and see if that is issue. Yes, that's just a tiny issue right here. And we are good to go, I believe. So it seems we have a major issue right here. And I think that is because this component right here, yes, we are missing something right here. Let me just try and find where that syntax error is coming from. So we are trying this, and this right here, we're supposed to have it somewhere else. So after this, we're supposed to have a curly braces as well, and that should fix our issue. So if the search query and the search query length is greater than 2, then you're going to set the loading to true, and we're going to set the result to an empty array. And also we're going to set the search term state to be the search word that the user searched for, and we are going to just fetch the news and all. So let's just check our search component and see if there is no error right here. It says use state doesn't exist, just what we need. So let's just import that. And I don't think we have any components to bring in as well. So that is ready. And all you have to do is just pull the news and we should be good to go. And before we also leave here, I want to have an X icon right here. So I'm just going to have a touchable opacity as well, like this. And I'm going to be using an X mark icon from React Native Outline. Sorry, hero icons, by the way. I'm going to say the size is going to be 25. The color is going to be of green. And finally, the stroke width. The stroke width is going to be 3. So let me just save that. And also I want to have an on press right here, which is basically going to take me to the home whenever I click it. So I'm just going to say navigation dot navigate, and I'm going to head to my home screen whenever I click on this. So if I click on this, it will take me to the home, and that is all what it does. So let me just minimize this right here and create the next component, which is basically this section right here, which says 100 news for Israel. So I'm just going to say I want a view here, and this view is basically going to have a text, nothing much, and this text is going to say results dot length, and it is going to say news for, also we're going to use the search term right here. So inside of this view, we're going to say class name is going to mx of 4, margin bottom is going to be 4 as well. Then text right here is going to say class name, and this class name is going to be text of XL. The dark is going to be text of white. Yes, as you can see, zero news for the search term. Also, we're going to have a specific font type here, and this is going to be font family of space grid text. Save that, and that should look like that. Let me remove this text here. It is not what we want. And finally, we want to have our main section right here. So basically all we are going to do is say scroll view, and the scroll view is going to have something that looks like this: content, container style, and this is going to be padding bottom of not 20, but we're going to use HP, and the HP is going to be 5. Do we have that created yet? Let's just import height percentage as HP. And yes, if we check just right here, we are going to say inside of this, we want to have our famous news section reusable component. And we are going to say the news main is going to be set to results. And also, we want the label to be search results right here. Save that, and we should be good to go. Let's just check once again. And it says canary property map of undefined. Let me just, okay, this is supposed to be news props like this. And let me just check once again. As you can see, there's nothing for now, but if we enter a keyword right here and we just search for Tesla, and this is going to try to search for the keyword Tesla, and let's just see if that news pops up. It seems it doesn't. So all we have to do is just make sure that we have our function pulled in properly. As you can see, let's just console.log and see if we are getting everything as it should. So let's just bring this up like this, and it says result is 0. Okay, then it shows that we are not being able to pull our data. So once we search for this, if it is still not working, all we have to do is check where we are using our event handlers, and yes, there is the error. We don't want this to be like this. We want this to be unchanged text. And let's just search for Tesla again. And as you can see, 0 news for Tesla, and you can see 100 news for Tesla. It has already pulled all the news related to Tesla, as you can see right here. So many news regarding Tesla for today. Let's just head back home. So if we just check back into our components right here, let's just minimize everything like this. And inside of our source, inside of our screen, we have our news details, and this is where we're going to create the functionality for that, or the components for that. And yes, so let's just head back to our home and let's begin installing our news details. So first things first, you need a package, and that is called React Native Web View. This will help you view URLs in your mobile app of existing websites, and you can just install this just like we install our packages as well. And make sure to restart your server in some cases that you have error. So let's just minimize this. And right here, let's just change this to an empty fragment. And also at the top level, I want to have a view. And inside of this view, I want to have a specific prop here, and I'm going to call this weight of full, flex of row, justify of between, items of center, padding X of 4, padding top of 10, and padding bottom of 4 as well, background of white. Then inside of this also, I want to create another view. Let me create another view this way. This is not the view I want. I want this. And inside of this view, I want to have the following properties. I want to have a BG of gray. This is basically an icon of 100, padding of 2, rounded of full as well, items of center, justify of center. And you're going to see what I'm creating in just a second. And we're going to have a touchable opacity. Let me just bring that like this. But I don't want to go to home. I just want to go back. So that looks like this. Go back. And yes, this is what this icon is going to do. And this arrow is going to take us back to where we're coming from. So I'm just going to say chevron. And I'm going to say chevron left icon. And I'm going to use outline. And I'm going to use these following properties. Size is 25, stroke width is 3. The color, however, is going to be gray. And yes, let me just import this as well. And after this, and also right after this, I want to have another view. And this view is going to have the following class name. And while we're doing all this, let's just make sure that we even see what we are building. So if you select each news, you're going to see the news detail screen. And you can see the icon that we have created just up here, as you can see. So let me minimize this. So inside of this view, I want to have the following properties: space, X of 3, rounded of full, items of center, justify of center, flex of row. And inside of this, I also want to create a touchable opacity, just like we have it before. Touchable opacity. And this is what that will look like. But when I unpress it, we don't want to go to home. So right here, we don't want to have a navigation with this touchable opacity. We want to be able to share the news to our friends or colleagues so that they can check the specific news. And this class name is going to be BG of gray, 100, padding of 2, rounded of full. And inside of this is where we're going to have a share icon. And I'm just going to import that right away. And that is what that looks like. Let me just close some of these screens that we don't really need. And yes, so once that is ready, after this touchable opacity as well, I want to also have another touchable opacity. And this touchable opacity is going to have BG gray of 100, padding of 2, rounded of full as well. And this is going to say, I want to be able to unpress this and also bookmark that specific news. So I'm just going to say toggle, bookmark, and save, which is basically a function that I'm yet to create. So let me just copy all of this. And right here is where I'm going to create that function. And I'm going to implement that very soon. But let's just continue working on our code. So inside of this, I'm just going to have a basic bookmark icon. Let me just import that. But this is going to be a bookmark square icon, and it's going to be coming from solid, not this. We don't want this at all, so let's just remove it instead of importing it. And after this, we are going to, let's just check again. As you can see, this is what we want right there. But we want this color not to be gray. We want to check if it is bookmarked. So I'm going to say if is bookmarked is true, then we want to change the color to green, just like we have for our other components. Then we're going to say else this is gray. Right here, let's just create the state for that. We're just going to say const is bookmarked. and we're going to set the state like this. Also, we want to create the navigation right here. I just want to import this like this so that we don't have any issue related to the navigation in case we need it. So it says this state doesn't exist. Let's just bring that in pretty quick. And once that is ready, just after this is where we want to have our web view. Our header component is ready, as you can see right here. So let's just minimize this. And inside of this web view is where we're going to say the source. And under this web view, under this web view is where we're going to use the web view package that we installed earlier. So I'm just going to say, head back here and say import web view from React native web view. And also we are just picking a specific component inside of it, so that will work that way. So yeah, we're just going to say it takes in some parameters, and the most important thing is the URL of the web view that you want to check. So let's just use the basic source as www.google.com. And yeah, and also I want to say if the component is loading, that is the web view is loading, I want to show something. I'm going to say on load start. Then that is when I want to show a function, and I want to set visible, which we have not created yet, which is a state. I want to set visible to true, and on load end, I want to set visible to false, which is basically a loading icon. And right here is where I'm going to create those loading icon, and I'm going to say const visible is set to false, and this is what that looks like. So this should work without any issue, but just before we leave here, I'm just going to remove this, and right here is where I'm going to say if visible is true, then we are going to show a loading component that we want. And here we're just going to pass in an activity indicator, and this is what that will look like. And I'm going to say the size of this activity indicator is going to be large. Also, the color is going to be, this is not what I want. This is going to be green. And also the style, I want to have the following style. The position is going to be absolute. Top is going to be coming from height, which we are yet to bring in, but I will bring that in any moment from now. And also the left is width of 2. So just, width over 2, which is half of the screen. So I'm just going to say const width is coming from dimensions dot window, and we're going to get dimensions of the window, and this should work without any issues. So if I click on this, we should see google.com, and let's just select it and see if we are doing the right thing. And you can see Google is loading, and that is why it's showing this loading icon. And you can see, yes, we have google.com. So this is basically how this web view works. And as you can see, it is mobile responsive as well. And also, I just want to do something before we leave here. After this, it seems we have a background here that we do not want. So let me just fix this by saying bg of white. And let's see if that solves that. No, it doesn't. But anyway, I think I'll just keep this as this. I think I should remove this as well. Okay, that fixed that. So I can as well just add to my code and use the URL for the specific news that we want. So basically, when we are clicking on each of the news, we are passing the specific data from that article to the next screen, and we can get those data by using our params from the route. So we can as well just say const, and const is going to be params. We're getting the params, but we are renaming it to be item. And also, we're using the use routes. There's a little typography error here. We're going to use the use routes as well. As you can see, it has been imported right here. So this is how we get all the data from this specific individual articles. And we can now use the item in our code and say, and this URI right here is going to be saying item .url. So if you save that, you're going to see the entire news related to this. And if we select this, you're going to see something right now. You're going to see the loading icon first, and you're going to see the specific news. And this is the entire information about the news. So if you click on back again, and if you check this Amazon pledges parcel, if you click on it, you're going to first see a loading icon right here, and you can see the news Amazon pledges parcel in an hour using drone deliveries. And yes, this is what we want for this section. And yes, we are good to go. And our news details is almost ready. All we have to do is just make sure that we are able to bookmark this specific news right here in our news details screen, and also check if the article is already bookmarked and this color can be changed to green. And to do that, we already have some functions created already in some previous code. All we have to do is just copy and paste the code and refactor it if need be. So right here, I'm just going to head back into my search screen, and I'm just going to scroll up right here. It seems I don't have it right here. Let me just close that, by the way. And in the news section, right here, toggle and save. Let me just copy this. In my news details, I'm just going to paste this right here. And it's going to say some things doesn't exist. And I'm just going to import it real quick. I've imported that. What else do I need to import here? So basically, I'll just check the code again and see if we really need to do some refactoring. So first things first, we are trying something, and this doesn't change at all. Also, we are checking if the URL is the same as what we have saved in our async. We are not changing anything related to that. Also, we're also checking if article bookmark is not true. We are going to push the specific article into our async storage. Then after that, I also want to set some things first. After this, I want to remove everything that is here and say toggle bookmark. I want to set this to be true. No, this is not what I want. Bookmark. I want to set this to be true. So I'll have to create that state right away. And right here, it seems I have is bookmarked created already. All I have to do is just copy this and replace that with this. So that is how that works basically. And after that, this code right here, I'm not going to change it at all, which is basically if an article is already bookmarked, then I'm just going to remove it from the list. And also async storage right here, I'm not going to change anything there. But here, I'm going to change everything that is here. We don't need those code. I'm just going to copy this. And GitHub Copilot is already suggesting what we should do there. Let me just bring this down and use what GitHub suggested. And I'm just going to set its bookmark to false. And after that, that is all I need to do regarding checking if this article is already bookmarked or not. So when I select this, I can bookmark it. If not, I can just remove it from the list. And also I want my use effect, just like I have it created here. Let me see if this is what I want. Nope. Let me check this as well. This is not what I want entirely, but I'm going to use some of it. So all the code that is here, I'm just going to, in fact, I'm going to copy everything and refactor it just to fit our screen right here. And this is going to be use effect, not use layout effect. I'm just going to import that right away. And this is not going to be sitting inside the use callback at all. In fact, I'm going to remove everything here. I'm going to remove everything here. Save that. And inside of this, I'm just going to create an arrow function that looks like this. And it is inside of this I'm going to pass in all of this. So save that, and our code should look like this. And finally, the dependency here is going to be item.url. So whenever the item.url is unique, it is going to check our saved articles, and that is all we need to do. But also we need to say, and also we need to just copy this and replace this with what we have right here. And also this is bookmarked article lists. We want to change it to something else. And also I want to change this code right here. It is not what we want exactly. So we're just going to say everything here, remove it first. And I'm going to say saved article arrays.sum. And I'm going to have another function here that says use the saved article as a parameter and check the saved article that we have already in our component that is in our screen and check if that matches what the item is coming with, which is the URL of the item. And that is all we need to do. So if I click on this, it is loading the specific news and you can see the entire details of the news. And if this article is bookmarked, this is supposed to be green. So once again, let's select this and this should change to green. If it doesn't, then it seems our toggle bookmark and save has a tiny error. So let's just check once again, saved article. And yes, we don't seem to have any issue with this. Let's just head back and go back to another news and check what we are doing wrong. So if you select this is going to bookmark this news. If you select it, it's going to check if the article is already bookmarked and return it to green, and that state will be maintained. Now, if you head back into another news source, so let's just try again and select this. So it shows our article is already bookmarked. Let's just go back and let's select Starbucks once again. And let's just select this. And this will change this specific icon to green, and we are going to have this bookmarked already. So if you go back and check our saved component or saved screen, you're going to see the latest article that we already have bookmarked. Where is it? As you can see it right here, Starbucks. And yes, so if you head back to our home screen and let's just bookmark this as well, and we check our saved, as you can see it right here, and we can even clear every article that is here. And I don't think we have assigned that to the button. So let's just check again inside of our search, inside of our save screen. And let me just check once again. Our clear, we don't have the onPress set already. So let me just minimize this. And let's just create a function that removes all the data here. That is all the articles here. If you want to clear them at once, let's just implement the function for that. So under this, I'm just going to say const. And after this, I'm going to say clear saved articles. And this is going to be an async function, by the way. And instead of this, I'm going to try and catch for the errors, just like we always do. And inside of this, I'm going to say await. And I'm going to await async storage and remove all the items in the saved article. And after this, I'm going to say set saved article to an empty array. That is removing everything in the array that we have. Then here I'm just going to console.log the error in case we have any error. So inside of this is where I'm going to say, where is my clear button? This is my clear button right here. And inside of this touchable opacity, I'm going to say onPress, and this onPress is going to be clear saved article. So whenever we click on this button, it's going to remove all this article from the saved article. So we do that in 3, 2, 1. As you can see, all our articles has been removed from the saved articles. And if we go back to our home, all icons that have green has been changed to gray because they are not bookmarked. And if you click on each news, it is not bookmarked. You're going to see the news in its entirety. If you select this, it is going to bookmark our article. And if you go back, the green icon will be there. If you bookmark this, bookmark this as well, we go back, and inside of our saved, you're going to see everything right here. And if you click on clear, it's going to remove everything from the section. So basically that is what we did. So let's just head back to our home screen. I don't want this gray to be there at all, that gray background. And let me just head back into my code right here and say I want to have a class name here. And this class name is going to be BG of white. And you're going to see the gray turn to white any moment from now. That is what I definitely want. So it seems our app is ready and we can do a final demo right now. So now that we are done with our build, let's just check if everything works as it should. So let's just do a final demo. So if we select this, it's going to change it to dark mode, and you're going to see our news app in dark mode. And if you check the discover section, It is also working in dark mode, and you can see all the articles that has been bookmarked. If we check the saved section, you can also see that everything works as it should. And the search section, if you just search for Tesla, you're going to see all the news related to Tesla in a minute, and you can see right here. So if you bookmark this, it is going to change this icon to green, as you can see right there. And if you check your saved section, you're going to see the Tesla news pop up in the saved articles. So in our breaking news right here, we didn't use a fallback image. Let's just check our code and let's just search for pick some, which was the part that we chose the other time. And pick some, we're just going to use this as the fallback image. So inside of home, we're just going to head to where we have our breaking news components, and inside our breaking news card. So once we get the item.url image, we also want to use a fallback image. And just in case some of the breaking news doesn't have a specific image, and that is what we definitely want. So this image will show up any moment from now, as you can see. And if you select each of these, you'll be taken to the news details screen, and you can as well see the full details of the breaking news for today. As you can see, CNN and the news for today. And yes, that is what we want created for that. And just in our news details, let's also fix something, which is the status bar right here. Let's just close this news details screen, and we didn't add our status bar at all. Let's just add it pretty quick. So let's have a status bar from Expo, and we are going to say the style is going to be conditionally rendered if the color scheme color scheme is dark, then we want to use the light mode, else we want to use the dark mode, just like we have in our home screen right here. If you check our code, we have the status bar right here. So let's just import this as well. So let's just copy this and go to our news details screen, and just right here is where we're going to have that. And we're also going to import this right here. And it seems our app has broken, and that is due to the virtual device. On real physical device, there is no issue related to this. So we're just going to let our app load once again, and you're going to see the dark and light theme take effect in our news details screen. So let's just select this, and it says font doesn't exist. That's because in our app, in index.js, we have this initial route name to be home tabs, and that is not where we are pulling our fonts. We are pulling our font from the splash screen. We are loading from the splash screen. So let's just reload everything. Let's reload our app, and let's just minimize this. And to reload and start from the splash screen, and we can do a final demo. As you can see, we have our splash screen right here, start news, and also we have this welcome screen as well. So if you click on this, you'll be able to pull all the news that you want, and it is going to show any moment from now, as you can see. And if you select each news, you're going to see the full details about the news, and you can see the status bar changed already to dark because we are on light mode. And you can even watch video right here, as you can see. So you can as well scroll up and see other information as well. So we can just go back right here and check our discover screen. The discover screen as well is going to have all the news that we have. And if you select entertainment, it is going to pull the news related to entertainment and all. So if you click on saved as well, you're going to see all the saved articles that we have saved. If you select clear, it's going to remove it. And the search screen is where you can search for any specific news. And if you click this, it is going to take us back to home. And that is what we want for our news app. So guys, that brings us to the end of today's build. If you like the build, remember to click the like button, subscribe, and also share to other developers that are interested in building a news app. And that is all for today.